Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Red Devil Experience. My name is Eric. Hope everybody is doing well. We got the latest Manchester United news, most up-to-date news. We're going to get into Kobbie Mainoo, potential exit. He's not in the squad to face Tottenham. He has not traveled. What does this mean? There is some speculation. We're going to try and break it down. We're going to have a discussion about it. Also, Amorim's been given a bit of an Elliot Anderson boost. We're going to get into that. There's more transfer news. And lots of topics to discuss on today's show. So please make sure you smash the like button. It is important to the channel. Get that done. Click that like button. Get us pushed out there. Help us grow. And also, if you're new to the channel, we are trying to get to 3,500 subscribers. We're at 3,230. Make sure you subscribe. Join the community. Welcome to the family. We want you here. Get involved in the live chat. Get involved in the comments underneath the channel after the show as well. And yeah, it's gonna be good. It's Friday. We're gonna talk about a couple different things. So Lyle is here. Shout out to Lyle. Says, hey, Eric and all you Reds. Says it's Friday. Missed the last couple of lives. Glad to be back. No problem. You know, I was testing out different times, so it's all right if you didn't make them. But you know, I'm gonna kick off the show real quick by just hitting this thing real quick, yeah? I mean, how does this look? Oh, wrong way. Still wrong way. I gotta get used to this. How does this look? I love it. I love it. I seen somebody said hang it in the lavore, if that's how you pronounce the word. But I wanted this. I'm so happy this happened. And Mbeumo, I think, deserved Premier League Player of the Month. He was fantastic. We had a fantastic October. We were the best performing team in October in terms of points. If you rank this in a table, for strictly October, we were the best performing team. And our manager won Manager of the Month in the Premier League as well. And it's good because, you know, we've had a hard road under him. It's been a really, really big struggle. So it's good to see him get this. It just means the team all around has performed quite excellent, and I'm very happy that he won that. But on that, you know, Ruben was asked, you know, about this, and I will just get to his comments real quick about that. So he was asked on winning the Premier League Manager of the Month award. He said, the credit goes to my players. They did very well. Our goal is to win the next award because that means we are winning matches, and that's our goal. And I think he also went on to say, or he didn't go on to say, but Opta Joe came with a little bit of a stat update, yeah, that goes hand in hand with this. That says, with 3 wins, 9 points, and a goal difference of +5, Manchester United topped the Premier League table for October 2025 with Ruben Amorim, the first boss to win the competition's Manager of the Month award since Erik ten Hag in November 2023. So, again, a lot of it's positive update, you know, very good. I didn't know that Ten Hag didn't get it, you know, since November 2023. It seems like so long ago. And it just kind of shows, you know, from that point, kind of the little bit of the, not a little bit, but the downward spiral we kind of went through and the very hard period. I mean, while Ten Hag was here and then into Amorim's tenure. And now we seem to be bouncing back. We got a tough match against Tottenham coming up tomorrow. I'm going to do a little bit of a preview into that. We're going to talk about that as well. So, yeah, just very happy for Amorim and the lads. You know, I'm glad that they won those awards. I think we had a very, very nice October. October was very good to us. And I know November is a little bit of a strange one because we have, you know, a 2-week break. So it's not going to be as long, not as many games, but yeah, just really, really happy. Elias says, what a few weeks can do. Football is crazy like that. Yeah. I mean, that's what happens. I mean, things can change. And that's why we can't be afraid to, like, you know, change our opinions as we go and stuff like that. Because, like you said, just, you know, things are constantly changing. I think that people that can't change their opinions after, you know, new stuff happens or new information, I think they're in the wrong. And it's not the people that do change their opinions. I think we have to constantly be assessing situations and, you know, kind of looking at what's happening in front of us and, you know, on a week-to-week basis. Take it all in, evaluate, and formulate an opinion, you know, and a feeling of what's going on. So, Yeah. But let's get into the Kobbie stuff, yeah, because this is I mean, it came out earlier in the day that because Ruben Amorim had something to say on Kobbie Mainoo. I mean, he did another one of these interviews. It's like the 2000th time that he's done an interview. So he literally just did one. So he said that Ruben said that I see Kobbie Mainoo training and he deserves to play, but then I have to take one guy out that's playing really well. And he also went on to say something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but he's like, we need to see Kobbie play, we need to see Xerxes play. But when you're playing one match a week, it's very hard to get these guys into the team. Now, that sort of has sent mixed reactions across the board. Some people sort of buying it, some people not. What's up, Box? Some people buying into it, some people not. Some people don't really like the quote that he gave because they don't see how, I guess, it makes sense. I'm not defending it or anything. I'm just trying to give like the the different views here. People are arguing that, well, if you're seeing Kobbie in training and you're saying he deserves to play, they don't feel like he's making enough of an effort to really give Kobbie playing time. I mean, last match he didn't play at all. And, for a guy that you're stating that you feel like deserves to play and then not play him in literally the last match that we just had, it kind of contradicts itself there. Now, what unfollowed after that is that, like I mentioned in the opening of the show, Kobbie Mainoo was not spotted traveling with the squad to face Tottenham. The lads have hopped on a train and traveled to London. I think they're there by now. And, the whole squad is there. Kobbie Mainoo is not there. Who is there is as follows. Up on your screen here, Manchester United squad to face Tottenham. This is from the Manchester Evening News. Goalkeepers, Lemons, Heaton. Defenders, Delo, Yoro, Mazwari, Delit, Dorgu, Shaw, and Maguire. Midfielders, Ugarte, Casemiro, Fernandes, Mount, and Jack Fletcher. Forwards, Cunha, Ahmad, Sesko, Mbeumo, and Xerxes. So Jack Fletcher has come into the squad in place of Kobbie Mainoo. And no Lisandro Martinez, unfortunately. I think there was a hope that we would see Lisandro part of the squad, but I guess United are going to take the opportunity to give him more time, give him more training. There is a 2-week international break, and my assumption of that is he'll probably jump into the squad on the bench after the international break. At least I hope. But going back into Kobbie, because I kind of deviated a little bit from that. The update that came into that, not only is it that Kobbie is not in the squad, and not only that Kobbie, the comments made by Ruben Amorim about Kobbie, but there was also another update regarding sort of his transfer situation in terms of maybe a loan. Or potential buy. And I lost it here, but I will find it in a second. So just give me a second. So it is right here. So this came out about 3 hours ago. Alfredo Padula, who is credible, and he has Italian links and Italian sources. And this is what came out right before, or right around the time that it was announced that Kobbie Mainoo is not part of the squad. This update comes as saying, just in, AS Roma have joined Napoli in the race to sign Manchester United's Kobbie Mainoo. Alfred Padula then threw in and said the player's current valuation is estimated to be in the region of 45 to 50 million euros. And I don't know why, because it seems like he's alluding that they might potentially put in an offer to sign him permanently and not on a loan. Because the conversation has always been he's going to go on loan. He's not in the squad. I don't think we've gotten any update as to why he's not in the squad. My initial thought was that, maybe it's some sort of injury, minor injury or something like that. Maybe he's not fit. But then this coming out from Italian sources, kind of has me thinking that maybe there's some sort of a deal that might be advanced, but it doesn't make sense because he can't go anywhere. So that, that doesn't check out. I would assume it's some sort of an injury, as to why he's not there. So, Bach says, I'm not really bothered if Mainoo stays or goes at this stage. Another tiresome player saga, boring. Well, it is getting, played out because, again, I mean, he is I would say a loved individual. And he's also an individual that gets a lot of people talking. Yeah. So, I mean, from the media standpoint, I mean, they're kind of dragging this thing out, and it's probably going to continue to be a point of conversation until we get to January, and it'll probably get ramped up more because then that's when the rumors are really going to start flying like crazy. But yeah, I mean, it is one of a topic of discussion that is not leaving the fan base. It is constantly on a weekly basis, probably almost on a daily basis, being talked about and discussed. So, I mean, Box goes on to say, if Mainoo can't be patient, then it is what it is. Different managers like different players, suit different tactics, formations, etc. I just want to see Manchester United get back to the best, whoever is playing. And that's how I generally feel, Box. I mean, like, again, I think we do very well in this community, in this channel, to not be any type of player FC. We don't do that sort of thing. We do maybe have some favorites, but I don't think we let that overshadow the bigger fact of that, the club comes first, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who's playing as long as we're playing good and we're getting good results and, United are winning. Because at the end of the day, that's all we really want. We want United winning, yeah? So, I mean, I just don't know. I feel like with the updates, they're trying to drive a sort of narrative because, I mean, Box kind of hit on it a little bit. And I just don't think that's what's going on at the club. In terms of he has, in some sense, a certain lack of patience. Again, I think this is all totally, like we've talked about before, this is all because of the World Cup and he wants to play. And I think the same is for Xerxes. I don't think we would have this sort of hysteria in the way that it's being sort of publicized in the media. Because the way they write the articles, the way they give the updates, they make it seem like Kobbie is going berserk behind the scenes, being non-professional, and sort of like agitating a move because he's super displeased. I think Kobbie has. I think behind the scenes, Kobbie is being professional about it. I think he's showing up to training. I don't think there's problems between him and Ruben in that sense. I think they're both being professional about it. And every time, Ruben speaks about Kobbie, I mean, it's not like he's been putting him down in the public. Now, we've kind of seen this before, so I think that's why, like, people and fans feel a bit weird about it, because we've seen him do something like this in terms of, to a certain point, with Garnacho and maybe some others, Rasmus, and then when the time comes or when the opportunity is at the door, they are shown the door. So I feel like maybe some people don't really trust the situation going on right now. They don't trust Ruben that much because they trust him, but they just know that, if something happens, like there might be a potential that, if somebody comes in with an offer for Kobbie Mainoo and it's a large fee, they don't trust United to keep him because it's a pure profit type of thing. They don't trust the Ineos in that sense. And they don't trust Ruben in the sense of that, we've seen him many a times big up all his players in the media. And I think that's just his way of handling it. I sort of agree with it. I don't think that I don't think the manager I think there's a time and place for everything, and I think for the most part, for, you know, 80% of the time, maybe 85% of the time, I don't think, if there is situations, the media should not be given certain information. I don't think it would help for Ruben to be like, yeah, he should probably go on loan, or we're going to look to move him out. I mean, he's here. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the situation of the team. You don't want to say something that you eventually probably have to backtrack on if things change. So, I mean, we got to see. But, Lyle says Mainoo's head is turned by the World Cup. Honestly, look at the midfield Tuchel recently selected. How does Mainoo get in? Well, I mean, I guess from Mainoo's standpoint, he can't really get in if he's not playing, yeah? I guess that's his main thing. He needs minutes to at least have a chance. Now, I get what you mean by, look at the midfield that he's selected and where does he actually fit into that. But I guess from his standpoint, he's looking at it kind of like, I don't even have a chance. I mean, if I don't get in, I don't get in. There's nothing really I can do from that. Unless, if I have the minutes and I give it my all and he doesn't pick me, then he doesn't pick me. But I think he is probably like, right now, I really don't stand a chance because I just don't have the minutes and I can't compete with the rest of them that are obviously playing, football week in, week out on a consistent basis, probably starting. So, Bach says, we lost many players before and we'll lose many players in the future. I don't think there needs to be such a clamor every week as to why he's not playing. It's like Prime Messi being benched. Well, again, it's just the fan base is really divided on this because a lot of people like him and a lot of people still believe that it's not the right decision for him to not be playing. They believe in his talent. So this situation is going to continue to divide opinion, and it's going to divide the fan base, and it's going to continue to be a talking point until there is some sort of a resolution to it, which is either he comes into the team and he has a bigger role, or maybe he's given a start, or a couple starts, which at the moment, I don't see that's likely. And knowing Ruben and his past and the way he operates, he does take a long time to make sort of a change or something like that, especially if things are working or things aren't necessarily wrong, which he would argue right now, with 3 wins and a draw, why change it if it ain't broke? Because it's performing particularly well for us. So, things in this situation would have to go really wrong for him to change what he's doing. And so I don't think he's going to do that. The other thing would be, we get to January and he gets sent on loan for 6 months, and then that's the end of the story. Obviously then there'll be Kobbie, Mainoo, watch loan and stuff like that. But my thing is, I feel like they're trying to play an angle in the fact of that it could end up potentially being more than a loan. And I don't know Kobbie Mainoo. I can't speak to him. And I don't know what he, truly actually believes, because he's not coming out and he's not speaking and he's not saying anything. We're just getting updates in the news. So I don't feel like he wants to permanently leave the club. I think this is because of the World Cup thing. I would feel a bit heartbroken. I assume if he decides that he wants to permanently leave the club, because I just feel like he's too young to go. I feel like he's too young to give up on his United path, and I feel like he's too young for us to give up on him and write him off or whatever it is. I do feel like I do have patience for this to play out. I don't have a problem necessarily that he isn't necessarily playing, in terms of starting matches, because I just think at this point there has to be a process for our team and our football club. And I feel like the normal standard level, without getting crazy into the modern game and this whole wonder kid shit that I think has been sort of exacerbated by Football Manager and FIFA, because people, when they play those games, it's all about finding the next regen, the next wonder kid, and turning them into an absolute beast. And I don't know why, but that gives people special feelings. And I feel like they want to translate that into real life, especially when they see people like Lamine Yamal and stuff. But the normal standard procedure is you are a young guy, you are a kid, you still need to develop your game, you need to grow as a person, and leading the line should be the experienced players. Leading the line and taking the brunt of the responsibility should be the grown, experienced players. And I feel like football, in terms of from the fans, is like has moved away from that a lot, and they just want to throw in these kids when they're 17, 18, 19, 20 and make them superstars instantaneously and try to make them the best player that's ever lived in the world. And it, real life doesn't work like that. For that to happen, it's a very rare occurrence. Now, I feel like a lot of people think Kobbie Mainoo is sort of this rare occurrence, and that's why they argue so much that he should be in there. But I still stick and align with sort of the old school standard type of classic that, the way I view Kobbie is he's sort of an apprentice. There's people in front of him that have a lot more experience and their game is a lot more well developed. And I kind of look at it almost as like soldiers in a certain aspect as well. Like, you don't put, in some circumstances you do, but I think in like, even in like war and stuff, you have your most experienced guys on sort of the front line leading the charge. You don't put the inexperienced or less experienced guys leading the charge normally. So I think for Kobbie, I think this is just a standard procedure. I think his time will come, and that's why I just want him to continue putting the work in the background. But Box says, I don't really get attached to players anymore, to be honest. I've always championed Bruno, but if he leaves, he leaves. If a Bayern comes in for him next summer, he won't think twice about leaving, probably. Yeah, I always find that aspect weird as well, Box. Like, when I was a child, and even maybe in my teens, like when I was like 14, 15, 16, I used to get attached to players, but like you stated, we've seen so many players come in, we've seen so many players leave, we've seen heroes leave this football club, we've seen, stars, world stars leave this football club, and, I think as a grown adults, to be super attached to a player is, it's a bit weird to me in certain aspects, so much so that, it turns into a player FC type of thing where it's the player over the club. And again, I don't agree with that. I don't think that way. And honestly, that attachment doesn't do you any good because it does cloud your judgment. So we do try to stay balanced. You know what I mean? But Bach says, I think Erik ten Hag pinning so much hope and opportunities on Mainoo and Garnacho has ultimately backfired. They have been fast-tracked too soon, and they think they're mid-20s established players. Well, that has always been one of the aspects in terms of Mainoo that I've tried to point to. It's the fact that we gave him so much so early, and now that I feel like that the order of operations has sort of reset itself to some sort of normalcy, where there is like a ladder to go up in, and a standard order of like operations. It gives off the view of like, we're taking everything away from him. We don't want him here, because his role has been reduced. But I do agree, Box, that I do think that I think because we were in such a bad shape and we didn't have as many options, I think Ten Hag was kind of forced into the situation that he needed to rely on those players early and kind of give them too much too early. Not to say that, Kobbie, I think, the way he played when he came in, I think he did deserve to play. And, he was playing really good and he was having big impacts in the matches. But it sort of got to a point inadvertently. I don't, that he sort of became this very established player at that time. But again, he's not sort of the finished article. He's going to have ups and downs. And it seems like we've gone from one extreme to the other. We haven't really found the balance for it because he went from playing every game all the time, overusing him. I think we burned him out a little bit, and he suffered an injury because of it. And during that time, many players suffered injuries under Erik ten Hag. And to now, it's like, it seems like it just gives off this vibe. I don't know, it might be me, but I feel like a lot of people view it as like we've almost taken Kobbie and we've locked him in a prison cell. That's how they react to this sort of stuff. So, and Bach says, we haven't really developed the youth well since Fergie. John Uzai, for example, became the go-to guy under Moyes, given the 11 shirt and a 5-year deal. Belgium World Cup squad 2014. I mean, we've done that with a few guys, yeah? And I think we gave him a lot too early, and it's especially in today's day and age with social media and all that stuff playing in a hand. I think it doesn't really do them too good. But again, I think with this whole Kobbie thing, I don't think we have a situation on our hands where it's like maybe Garnacho or something like that. I think Garnacho was different to Kobbie. I think he wants to play. I think he wants to grow. And I think really it's this whole World Cup thing. So Ray says, I'm sad to see Mainoo go. I think he is done under Amorim. Sad to see one of our young lads go. Well, I don't necessarily feel, Ray, that he might be totally gone. Because I don't know. It's a tricky one to try and navigate. I don't totally discredit that because I do have a slight feeling that for whatever reason, and maybe it's just, our past handlings of certain situation or not really being able to trust the football club, the managers or the players or whatever over the last periods of time. There is a piece of me that I just feel like for whatever reason, not right now, but maybe at some point, it could lead to him totally being gone. But, there was an update that goes into this, and then this starts making me feel and think the other way, because it kind of goes straight into the fact that, why would you be working with this player so closely if you don't want him, you don't believe in him? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense that, and I'm trying to find the update for it because there was one on Kobbie and Ruben, and we got one the other day, we got another one today. So I just want to get to this update and sort of read it and hit on this point that while we're getting sort of these headlines and we're getting this sort of dynamic. Ruben has said what he said in that interview, but at the same time, we then get an update about it. I'm gonna have to search for it. So give me a second. So here we go. Sully talks 56 seconds ago. We have gotten the update surrounding Kobbie Mainoo and surrounding the situation, and apparently. It says Kobbie Mainoo has picked up a knock in training, injury described as minor. But we also had this update. We had a couple updates, like Ben Jacobs saying Ruben Amorim trusts Kobbie Mainoo. Mainoo has spent the most time with Amorim working on tactical evaluation. Amorim wants to build maturity and intelligence. And this is what I'm trying to say. I for the most part, at least I want to believe that this is the truth. And I kind of feel like that is Ruben Amorim's way, in that I don't think he doesn't like Kobbie. I think he wants more from Kobbie. I think he wants to build him up. And I think I generally feel like Ruben has decided to go the longer route with Kobbie, which again, in today's time, a lot of people, I don't think they have the patience for this anymore. I think they see the likes of these young players sort of going into other teams and starring, and they look at our team and they say, well, we're not the best and he should be playing because he's obviously good, and how can he not get into this team when we're not even that good? But I do feel like there is, if you have a proper plan for the kid and you actually believe in him and you're working with him, it doesn't make sense that you are going to toss him away. And this is why I've been trying to say I don't actually believe that Ruben doesn't actually rate him in terms of that he's written him off. Now, you could say he doesn't rate him at this moment because he's not playing him and he's not picking him over other players and he's not starting. But I don't think it's to say that he hates Kobbie in terms of that he doesn't believe that Kobbie has anything to work with, because we keep getting these updates that he's been working closely with Kobbie. He wants him to learn. Him coming out and saying, I see Kobbie Mainoo training and he deserves to play, but when I have to take one guy out that's playing well, that sort of thing. I mean, it gives fans sort of, I wish he would sort of addressly just come out and just say, I want him to stay, and there is a player in Kobbie, and kind of just kill it. And I think because he doesn't do that, it leads to speculation, or it leads to sort of an open story. And it has people like Ray have an opinion that, they feel like that at some point Kobbie will be permanently gone for this football club. Just like on this update from Ben Jacobs earlier in the day, like Amorim wants to give Kobbie Mainoo time and thinks that it's best for his development, and Kobbie Mainoo doesn't want to wait for time because he's played a lot for Manchester United already. He has other suitors and has a World Cup on the horizon. So if this was season 2026-27 after the World Cup, maybe player and manager would be a bit more aligned, but Mainoo has to think more short term, and Amorim is thinking about Mainoo's development long term, and that's why at the moment it's probably quite a frustrating situation. And I think that's just all that it really is. I don't believe that Kobbie has like given up on the guy. Box says, I would personally keep Mainoo and stress. Well, we got the poll, so get in the poll and vote. I would personally keep Mainoo and stress patience is key. He's at Manchester United, he's 20, but if he's still keen to leave now, then so be it. It's important we have everyone pulling in the right direction. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you don't want to keep a player that doesn't really want to be there. And now, I don't think Kobbie wants to permanently leave. Again, I think this is the whole thing for the World Cup. So, I guess the only way we resolve this is either you try and convince him that it's the best sort of option and we are looking out for his best and we understand the whole World Cup thing. But for the long term, for your long term future, forget about the short term. Look at the long term picture. If you can't convince him, then I guess you just got to let him go, because it's going to create an unhappier situation. They're not going to be aligned. And it'll be temporary anyway. So, Lyle says, like, let him go out on loan for 6 months. If he gets into the World Cup squad, cool. It will benefit us in the long run should he stay afterwards. I do see Mainoo being a core future in our midfield. Johnny Hill says, I think Amorim's comments about Mainoo was just toxic gaslighting from Amorim, to be honest. Amorim was happy about one game a week. Now he's saying players can't get game time due to it. Well, I don't think he was necessarily happy about the one game week. I kind of disagree with that, Johnny. I mean, I don't think they were toxic, and I don't think they were gaslighting at all. I do disagree with that, and I don't think he's necessarily happy about one game a week. I think he would like to be in the competitions that we should be in. But, I've listened to his comments, and he said more so the fact that not that he's necessarily happy, but there's nothing that we can really do about this situation, and we got to try and take the positives into it. And the positive in having one game a week is that you can train more. So that's what that's the cards that we have dealt. There's nothing really that we can do about it. I mean, what do you want him to do? Bitch and moan, every week that we're playing one match a week? But I think it does cause a problem for him because, again, it's only one match a week, and we didn't help ourselves with the Carabao Cup. And we were already limited for options. And The only thing that you can kind of hit him on is that, okay, it's one game a week, and if players are playing good, it's hard to kind of rotate and get you into the squad because there's no real need for it. But at the very least, there shouldn't be a reason why he's not getting minutes against Nottingham Forest when we kind of needed substitutes, and you could argue maybe some players weren't playing great. So that's the only point that I think goes back onto the fact that, it's kind of a contradiction in that aspect. Johnny says Bruno was trash for 70% of the games and continued to get played for majority of games. I just don't trust Amorim. Well, that's in your opinion that he's 70% trash of the games. I don't think that they view that. I don't think that they view that. I don't think that they see that. And also, again, no matter how much people disagree with this, I think you have to wrap your head around. I'm not saying I'm for this. I'm just saying that this is the situation, and I understand it, is that Bruno Fernandes is our captain. I don't get the argument of how people I don't get the argument of people trying to say that Bruno needs to be dropped for Kobbie Mainoo when Bruno is the captain. Like, in a team, in a normal situation, unless he's so bad, and then there's somebody so good, and you're going to replace the captain, and you're going to change the captain, in what world does any team take their captain and drop them? I mean, if you drop him for a match, good. But it's a temporary thing. It's not like you're going to drop Bruno because he played like shit for a match, and then he's going to come back in anyway. So, it doesn't really solve the problem. It's not really going to solve the problem. And again, I think the way we've set up is there is a ladder system here, for the most part, in that the more experienced guys are going to lead the front line. They're going to take the brunt of the responsibility, and the younger guys will have to be patient, work on their game in the background, and wait for their opportunities, like how it used to be, for the most part. Buck says, Ray says Amorim's protecting himself. I don't think he's doing that to protect himself, though. I think he's done it because he believes it's the best course of action for the squad as a whole. I don't think he's doing it necessarily because, again, right now, this team, the team that he's selecting, the team that's going out there, we have 3 wins and a draw. So, in his defense, it's working. So why would you switch it around? Why would you change things if we're hitting these good form right now? Why would you change anything? The team is performing. So it's not even like, if we just lost the last 3 matches in a row, I think it would make more sense to make an argument to say, well, the team you're picking isn't working and we're not getting wins. So, make a change. But in this moment in time, especially right now, playing these last 4 matches with 3 wins and a draw, and, just winning manager of the month for October, why would you change anything in the squad if it's performing well and it's actually potentially starting to gain momentum and do better? So I don't think Amorim's doing it to protect himself, because I don't think really Ruben cares that much if he gets fired or not. I think he's stated a lot of times that he just wants to do good, and I think in his mind, in his brain, and from his words, that he believes the best course of action is to trust his experienced players and go with them and work in the background with these younger players. Like Jack Fletcher's going to be on the bench for tomorrow's match. Yeah, I don't know if he'll get minutes. He might take Kobbie's role. Maybe he gets 15 minutes. He might not play at all because maybe Jack Fletcher is just there to fill the spot, and Jack Fletcher is, way less experienced than Kobbie Mainoo. And if Kobbie Mainoo's getting 20 with his experience, and Jack Fletcher doesn't have the experience of Kobbie, Jack Fletcher might not play at all. He might give him some minutes, though. So I don't know. Johnny says if Amorim was consistent with his treatment of players, I could get behind him, but he's so biased towards certain players. Okay, but you tell, biased in what way, and what players, and what manager is not? Because every manager has favorites in terms of what they believe is best for their squad, who is performing, who is doing well, and who fits their system the best. There's players with different qualities. I'm just, I'm just trying to have a conversation here. In what way is he super biased about that? Is that what I want? Amorim's full of crap, says Ray. Portuguese players first. There's only two Portuguese players, and again, I don't think it has anything to do with them being Portuguese. I really don't, because Ten Hag was Dutch, and both of them played constantly. I think that they play because they are the best options we have, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not. They are the best options we have. I mean, Bruno is one of our most experienced players. He is the captain. And he has been the most impactful signing we've had post Sir Alex Ferguson. And every single manager that has been here has played him and has started him. So whether you think that that's good or not is a different story. But I don't think, again, I don't expect the captain to be kicked out of the squad. It doesn't make sense. If you're going to do that, then take the captaincy off of him. It's never going to happen. Not right now. The only way that happens is if he's really, really bad, or he does something he's not supposed to as a captain, like, he breaks the rules or something like that. Or he's a falling out with the manager or something. But I don't think he has a reason to fall out with the manager, And Delot, we talked about Delot. Again, Delot, in terms of, I would argue that if it was really Portuguese first, we wouldn't be seeing Amad Diallo playing on the right-hand side and starting matches. Because he would prioritize and put Delot over him. Because Delot is Portuguese and he loves Delot. I think the left-hand side, Delot is going there and Delot is playing in there. Because I think he trusts Delot a little bit more. Delot has more Premier League experience. He has more Manchester United experience than Dorgu. And Dorgu is not playing good. I think if Dorgu was playing really good, I think Delot would, and Delot playing the way he is, I think Delot wouldn't be able to get into the team. But we don't really have options on the left-hand side either. So I don't buy the Portuguese first thing. I really don't. I really don't. Lyle says, I believe there is a plan for our youngsters. Again, no World Cup. No Mainoo talk. Heck, if Mainoo didn't put through a loan request in the summer, nobody talks about Mainoo. Ray says, how you need more from Kobbie when you don't give him playing time. 10 minutes is not enough. More in training. More. Like, he needs to get more. Like, he needs to get more physical. He needs to improve his game. That's what he's asking for, I think, in more. I mean, he's there every day. He's watching them in training. And I think he's saying that he wants more from Kobbie. He wants to grow his game. He wants him to be more physical. He wants him to read the game better. He wants him to be smarter. I think that's what he's asking for. But that stuff, and I get it, because you need experience playing, so that's part of it. But like Lyle's saying, I do believe that there is a plan for our youngsters. I think there is a system. I think they've gone and implemented that. I think it's one that, again, many fans are going to have a problem with because they don't seem to have patience with this, and they seem to see it as some sort of BS, which I don't really believe, because I think the best way is to nurture the youngsters, and you need to take your time with them. I don't believe in rushing youngsters. I don't believe in just throwing them in and seeing if they sink or swim. I don't think that actually helps in the long term. You might get lucky with a couple of them, but I think for the majority of them, I don't think that really flies well. I don't. Now, every once in a while, you could get a surprise. But the best thing for me is, and the funniest thing for me is, nobody has the same sort of energy for Aid in Heaven that they do for Kobbie Mainoo, and it's basically a similar situation. Everybody seems to be a lot more relaxed about Aid in Heaven and giving him time and patience, and I think that's because of what we talked about before, is that we didn't give Aid in Heaven a lot. So the fact that he's not getting a lot now doesn't make the view or perspective that we're taking everything away from him and we don't rate him, because he never had a lot to start with. He was a surprise. He came out of nowhere. He played a bigger role than I think a lot of people expected. But we didn't make him a starter. We didn't highly rely on him. And, he's been a bench player that he hasn't featured a lot. He's the same as Kobbie. The only difference is that if you go back 2 seasons or 3 seasons, we gave Kobbie Mainoo the world at the age of 19 or 18 or whatever it was. And now that we set up a structure and a plan, people view it as Ruben doesn't like Kobbie and we're going to sell him and his career at Manchester United is done, which I think is totally preposterous. Box says, breaking news, Amorim was seen attacking Mainoo in the train with a broom and injured his leg. From Samuel Luckhurst, the Daily Axe. Johnny Hill says, also, this isn't just about players who start. Subs can change the games from a loss and draw a win, and the only way players like Kobbie will learn the system is by getting game time. I agree, and I will say that, I don't agree with the fact that he didn't play last game. I was actually quite surprised that he didn't sub him in. I find it quite strange, and I think that those are one of the points that, again, when he makes these statements, I think that's a fair game to hit back on him and say, well, you say these things, but how come he didn't feature last game? How come he can't get more than a certain amount of minutes? Can you explain that? They don't ask these questions, so we can't get the answers to them. So we have to sit here and speculate and talk amongst ourselves and try and figure it out, which is unfortunate because I would like the answers, and I think many people would like the answers. But Johnny says, Delo is the biggest example. I can't think of one game this season Delo has been good in, but he starts every game. Bruno, I reckon, would do better if he was taken off in some games. And I've always said, again, in some balance or some form, this is where I stand on this. Bruno Fernandes is the captain. He's not going to get benched unless some sort of event happens, because you just don't bench your captain. I mean, you might sit him down for a game to level him out if some shit is going on, but permanently drop the captain and to take Bruno out of the lineup and play Kobbie Mainoo 4 matches in a row. Well, we're taking the armband off of Bruno, and he's no longer the captain, and we're probably going to sell him at that point, which that's not the situation we find ourselves in. So, and again, with Delo, I get what you mean, because I know he's not playing well, but if you look at the options, again, I don't think there is an argument to say that Delo shouldn't be playing because Dorgu is better than him. So, I think what Ruben is doing is he's looking at it and he's saying Dorgu hasn't even been at this football club for a year, and he's 20 years old, and he doesn't have the experience that Delo has in the Premier League, and Delo has been at Manchester United for a long time now, and Delo isn't playing good, and there's an issue with playing Delo on the left-hand side because he's a right-footed player, and this might be wrong, but he entrusts Delo over Dorgu because of the experience, because he's been here at Manchester United. He's adjusted to Premier League football and English football more than Dorgu. And Dorgu, when Dorgu was playing and Dorgu was starting, Dorgu wasn't playing good either. So if you have 2 players that aren't playing good, and one has more experience than the other in the league and at the team, and is older player, well, I just feel like it makes sense if you choose to go with the more experienced player, because that's what you're choosing him for. You trust that player more. Now, if Dorgu is playing very good and he's having exceptional games and he can't start and Delo is playing like shit, then I think we have a problem. And I think there's a real discussion in that. But he's not. And that's the example that I gave. Like, again, for me, Amad Diallo is our best wing back. I think Amad Diallo is our best, most impactful player. I think he's the best one playing in those positions. If Delo is starting over Amad Diallo on the right-hand side, and Amad is either being pushed out to the left, or he's not getting started, I think that's when we have a serious issue that we can actually say, all right, well, what the hell is going on? Because now he clearly is playing favorites, because Amad is way better than everybody in that wing-back position. He's the most impactful, and he's starting Delo over him on the right-hand side. That's not happening. So the fact that Delo has been pushed to the left and now Dorgu is not starting is solely because Dorgu isn't playing good, and he's trying to rely on Delo for the experience. But Delo isn't playing good, so you're kind of fucked until one of them sort their shit out and actually starts playing. And that, in my opinion. Also, with the AFCON coming up, I wonder how any of these players are going to fill the void if they haven't got any match sharpness because they don't get game time. Well, I think it's a good... I mean, they should be sort of ready to go. I don't think they're like necessarily lacking match sharpness to a certain extent. Maybe Xerxes and maybe Mainoo a little bit, but I mean, if you're doing the training, you should be sort of ready to go, and maybe you could get sort of the match sharpness kind of quick within a match or two. Because, I mean, they are there doing the training. So, I mean, the AFCON thing isn't interesting. I mean, but there is an update about the AFCON thing. So, Johnny says, I said numerous times, too, I want Heaven to get more minutes, but if I'm honest, I said I wanted Shaw sold, too. Well, listen, it's all right to say if you want Shaw sold, and it's okay if you say you want Heaven to get more minutes. I want Heaven to get more minutes. What I'm saying is that, like, the hysteria that surrounds Kobbie Mainoo doesn't surround Aiden Heaven, and I think it's to the point of that, again, like we said before. It's just the fact that we gave Kobbie a lot, everybody's seen it, he's felt it, and he's lived it. And now it seems like we're taking everything away from him, where I think we kind of just hit a more of a reset button in our structure. And that dynamic doesn't play out with Aiden Heaven because we didn't give the world to Aiden Heaven. Aiden Heaven was a surprise. Aiden Heaven was a guy that, you know, we signed him for 1.5 million, which is basically nothing. There's a compensation fee. And you know, he came in, he didn't feature right away. We didn't really know what the plan was with him until he had to because of injuries. And he came in and he played well, and then he was involved a lot more. But even him being involved a lot more, we didn't just make him permanent starter and he played, you know, 90 minutes for the rest of the season like we did with Kobbie. So the fact that Heaven isn't really, you know, nobody's saying Heaven's only getting 20 minutes, or Heaven's only getting 10 minutes, or Heaven should be starting. But that's because the defense is actually doing well as well. But I would argue that, you know what, if we're winning games, and I don't really necessarily agree with the midfield, but if we're winning games and we look like we're playing better, then why change the midfield now? I think before we went on this streak, I think you can make the argument because, you know, we weren't performing well. And the midfield is still going to have problems, but I don't think Kobbie solves that. And I don't know if Kobbie actually necessarily solves that problem because, again, I just don't. I think Kobbie needs to build a little bit more in his game to kind of hold that position down. And that pivot demands a lot. I don't think Bruno is right for it either, but again, I think they're prioritizing experience over it. So, Johnny says, I saw Andy Mittens said we wasn't prioritizing left wing back, which makes me believe Amorim doesn't think left wing back is an issue. So that also scares me. Well, I did see that. We talked about it yesterday, Johnny, but then we did get another update that kind of flies in the face of that about the left wing back. And if I can find it, I will tell you exactly what that is because we did get it today. So, you know, I saw that story yesterday. I read that story. We talked about it yesterday. And I think that we probably do need a left wing back. But I kind of threw it back out there and said, well, maybe there could be a potential reason for that in terms of that. Right now, we might not necessarily have the option. But if you're talking about left wing back in the summer, well, you're talking about, you know, a whole season going by. We do have players like Harry Amos, and there is Diego Leon, who is talked about quite highly, but clearly, with a player like Diego Leon is being given time. He is doing the work in the background. There is no added pressure to him. They're not rushing him. They're letting him grow his game. They're letting him get adjusted to English football. They're not going to rush the kid and throw him into the thing unless there is some sort of, you know, like, let's say, for example, Dorgu gets injured, and maybe Delo gets injured, or we only have Delo. Well, now we're definitely at a lack of option in the wing backs because we'll only have Ahmad, Mazawari. All right, I got the perfect scenario for you. We're in January. AFCON's going on, so Maz has left. Ahmad Diallo is gone. And Mbuemo is gone. Yeah. So now we have Dorgu and Delo. That's all we got in the wing back spot, right? Now, if Martinez is back and is good, then you can make a push to put Martinez in at left center back, and you could have Luke Shaw potentially play left wing back. But we still don't have enough options there because that means that they're going to have to play. And yes, we're playing one match a week, so you could play them 90 minutes. But if you need a sub, if they're not playing well, if there is an injury, what are we going to do? I mean, so potentially in that situation, we would have to call up Leon and actually play him because it's needed, because of an injury crisis or something like that. But I don't know. Maybe they don't want a left wing back because they're looking at it and they're like, well, we have Amos and he's on loan. We have Leon, he's at the club and he's putting in work, and there's a plan for him to get more involved either later on in the season or, for next year, he should be more well developed and we can give him more opportunities. So those are two players that play on the left-hand side. And then you have Dorgu. And then potentially maybe you have Shaw swapping in and out as a potential, he plays left center back, but if we need him to play left wing back for a certain reason, he'll do it. But I don't know, maybe that's why. But I can't seem to find the update surrounding the left wing back thing. I did see it though, so I know it does exist, and I know I'm not making things up. Okay, here we go. Here. So Ben Jacobs, and this is from today. Ben Jacobs came with his own update against Andy Mitten's update and says he was asked on, if a fullback is a priority, or well, a wingback technically in this case. But he said, well, I think they're looking at a versatile fullback, whether that's somebody who can play left wingback / center back. If they can switch sides, even better. So the profile, for example, would be like a Tino Livramento, capable of playing on the right and the left. Kieran Trippier falls into that category as well. These are not Manchester United targets, but that's the kind of profile that they may look to add. I don't think it's a priority for the January transfer window, he goes on to say. So there could be a potential for that. But he also goes on to talk about and say that, you've got Diego Leon, who's doing excellent, I'm told, in training, and a bit like Christian Mosquera at Arsenal is the kind of talent that Manchester United feel could become very quickly ready for the Premier League football. So I think that's why there isn't sort of this priority right now, because I think they're assessing Leon. There's Amos in the background, and who knows what's going to happen with him and how well he's going to develop, and maybe he steps it up and maybe he comes in. So maybe for for January, I think it's out of the question, but maybe for the summer, maybe. I guess it depends how things go. And I think at some point during the season, maybe we'll see Leon step into the team and actually play and actually get some minutes. So Johnny says, I reckon Ineos will find a way to keep Mainoo anyway, because in Prem, you don't need a minimum amount of English players a part of the rules. Well, I mean, I don't think they need to necessarily find a way. I think that they will just say no if they don't want him to go. I get what you mean, but if Ruben, the thing is Ruben, and I guess you could feel like maybe it's selfish, and maybe it's wrong, but I try to understand it from his point of view. I mean, he is managing Manchester United, and he is the manager of Manchester United, and he wants what's best for him and his squad. And he, from the reports that we get, he truly believes that he wants as many players as the squad, even though it is hard to try and get them in. He wants depth in the squad. And his depth right now consists of 4 midfielders in terms of 2 start and 2 are bench players. And then even up top, because maybe, if Mason Mount gets injured and he's out, I would assume that leaves an open door for Xerxes to get some more minutes because you're going to need subs in matches to change the influence of the game, and also depending on the like the opposition we're playing, and maybe we need a different type of player with some different characters and qualities and characteristics. So, you know, Alvaro Fernandez would have been great for the left wing back role. Ten Hag, I hate you. Well, he would have probably. I mean, I always hate the fact that we didn't give him a real opportunity, but there was a story that I don't know if you're aware of, Johnny, but there was a story that came out. I don't know if it's necessarily down to Ten Hag. Maybe he could have made a bigger push for it. I mean, he did go along with it, but the story around Alvaro was that, so Ten Hag wanted to use Alvaro, but what happened is the club. So I guess you could hate the hierarchy for this at the time. Was that Brandon Williams' contract was going to run out, and they didn't want him, but they wanted to get money for him because he's obviously pure profit, and they just deemed him as no good for the football club, so they would like to get something out of it and not let him go for free. So what happened was when we went on tour in the summer and we did the preseason, there was an instruction to give Brandon Williams or prioritize Brandon Williams over Alvaro Fernandez because they needed him to play so that they could get some sort of, interest potentially in Brandon Williams, and then they could sell him. Ultimately, that failed because they gave Brandon Williams minutes over Alvaro. They didn't give Alvaro a chance. Obviously, Alvaro was displeased with this and pretty much led him to wanting to leave the football club because he's like, this is bullshit. And Brandon Williams didn't play good. He didn't get any interest, and we ended up not selling him and letting him go for a leave. So we fucked that situation up, because instead of prioritizing Brandon Williams, who was done and dusted at the club, and not for nothing, I mean, how much money are you going to get for Brandon Williams at that stage? I mean, he barely played. You might get a couple million, whoop-de-doo, but on the back end, now we lost a potentially good player who's now starting for Real Madrid and playing left wing back or left back for them. So we totally fucked that up. We totally fucked that up. I think that was one of the biggest mistakes we ever made. And rightfully so, because it didn't pay off. We didn't get money and we lost a player. A top talented youngster. So yeah. Johnny says if JJ Gabriel is promoted to the first team next season, which position do you reckon he plays? I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, we don't really have. I don't think JJ Gabriel will get promoted to the first team in terms of that. I don't think you will see him there on a consistent basis. He might get an opportunity here and there. Especially, next season, Carabao Cup and stuff like that. Maybe, if it's an FA Cup, one of the lower matches. But I mean, he does play. I mean, he plays center forward, second striker, or left wing, but we don't really have wingers. So I don't know. Maybe he plays in the 10, or maybe you get him to play as a striker. I mean, he is a very, very top talented young guy. He's 15 years old. He's 15 years old, and playing for the under 18s right now. He has 8 appearances, 7 goals, and an assist. So, he is performing quite well for his age. Exceptionally well for his age. Like let's not understate that. So, I think. I don't think he'll get into the first team squad in terms of on a permanent basis. I think maybe at some point they might throw him in there for a match or something for some experience. I think they're going to take more of his time. But I don't know. It'll be interesting because the way we play, I just can't see him. I mean, you know what? To be fair, considering that he can play sort of a center forward, and you would maybe argue that the 10 is close to that, even though it's not really, but the 10 is close to that. I mean, Cunha's 10 is more inverted, so it's more centrally. So it does almost sort of operate maybe kind of like a center forward in a certain sense behind the striker. But then you have Mbuemo's 10, who is more like a winger, who goes more outside, and then maybe cuts in later, which I think, considering if he can play winger, he can probably play in both 10s, because he can also play striker as well. So I don't know. I don't know what the plan is for him, but I listen, we have to trust the football club at this point. I think we've made many changes. I think they've changed the structure. I think they are setting up plans for these youngsters. I think they understand the importance of getting these youth players to come into the team at some point. I just don't think they're going to rush it, and I think they're going to be patient with it. Because again, I think they understand, and I think it's part of the plan. The more youngsters we can develop, and develop them good, the more, I don't like to use this term, but holes we can plug, sort of, in pieces that we need for the squad, which allows us to spend more money in other positions because we don't have to buy as many positions, and therefore we can spend more money on that. And then also, I mean, not for nothing, but if you do produce talent or you do produce youngsters, and maybe some of them aren't cut out enough to be at the level that we need them to be, at some point you can sell them, and it'll generate more money for us because it's pure profit, and then we can buy the players that we need to buy. We're not into we should never be, and I don't think we're necessarily going to be in the department of selling top talented young players, because I think they want them to be part of the squad. That's the whole point in trying to go and get these guys. But for the ones that aren't good enough, that aren't going to actually make it, somebody like Collier, I don't know if he's going to make it. He seems to be a little bit of a late bloomer. He could make it, but he might not. He just might not be good enough. When you compare him to other sorts of talents and players his age and his position. So, if he's not good enough, you sell him, it's pure profit. That benefits us. It's in both ways. So, Johnny says, I'd love to know what happened in the Alvaro to Madrid stuff, because we had a cheap buyback clause and we never even looked like going for him. We didn't look like going for him because he didn't want to come back, Johnny. That's why. I mean, we had it there. We put it there as insurance. But the reason why we never activated it is, or we didn't even look at it, is because you can go search it. His agent made a statement and basically was like, in layman terms, in a professional way, he essentially said, we will never fucking go back. They were very unhappy with the way he was treated. They didn't feel like we gave him a fair chance. And he fell out with Manchester United on a certain level. Like, he was like, I stayed there, tried to be patient. I didn't feel like I got a real opportunity. I've left the football club now. And I think also, to be fair, I think he always probably, I think his goal probably at the end of the day was to end up at Madrid. And the fact that he went to Benfica and then, was there at a short time and Madrid came knocking, there was no chance of him ever coming back. So, why would you activate a buyback clause on a player that doesn't want to be at your football club? Like, if you ring up the agent and say, hey, I know we have a buyback clause and we're thinking about activating it, and the agent basically is like, yeah, he doesn't want to be at Manchester United at all. Like, it's a big fuck you. Would you activate the clause? No, I mean, it doesn't make sense. Why would you want to bring back a guy that essentially doesn't like your football club anymore? And I think that's what happened, unfortunately. It was just done through the agent. But, he did make a public statement to that, with a certain tone in it, to basically be like, yeah, United, you fucked this one up. I mean, we don't really like you anymore. We're never coming back. Like, there's no chance ever coming back. So, Ray says we are running the next youth home. We are ruining the next youth home growing. I don't think we are. I don't think we are. I actually think that we're doing I actually think we are doing a better process right now with the youth than we've probably done in the past few years. So, I mean, our youth production hasn't even been that great. We've had a couple come through, like maybe a Garnacho or a Mainoo or maybe even a Mason Greenwood. But I think actually for United size, and our academy and even like the scouting network we have, we should actually probably be producing way more, and we should actually and actually the amount of talent that we have at the lower level should be way higher. Like there should be way more of them. It shouldn't just be one here, one there. We should be having more. I think they've changed that direction. And if you look at the club and what they're doing in terms of now, they really are buying. I mean, it goes right under the radar because we're buying a lot of players that nobody's ever heard of, so nobody really gives a shit. But the fact that we're going out and we're signing 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds from all over the place now. I mean, we're getting Colombians, we're getting, from everywhere. I think that they've changed that. And I think to bear that fruit, that's going to take a while. I mean, if we're signing 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, a 12-year-old, 16-year-olds, we're not going to see that for the next 3 to 4 years. But the more that we sign, the better, because we're potentially trying to get to a place of like what Brighton does, where they signed a Caicedo for next to nothing. It was like 3 million, and then if they're ready, I mean, maybe at Brighton you get more of a chance because it's maybe easier to get into. There's not as much demand, but they become this player that people would be willing to pay 100 million for. So again, I mean, if you look at our youth teams, if you look at the 18s, if you look at the under 21s, I think there's a very, very good crop of players there. But if you look at their age, I don't think any of them are really ready to really make that push. I think they need to continue on the path that they're on, and we need to continue taking care of them and growing them. And also, the first team needs to continue to sort itself out. The first team needs to continue to grow for these guys. Again, I don't think we're necessarily still in a place where there is an environment that is proper for these young players to come in and prosper. I think the first team still needs to find its feet. It still needs to perform better. It needs to be more consistent. The atmosphere probably needs to be better for them. And I don't think we found that yet. I think we're working towards it. And I think there's a hope that there is progress being made in that area, but I don't think it's ready. So my hope may be after this season, and I guess it depends how things go for this season. You know what I mean? If we have a good season, if we get back into Europe, if our team finds consistency and we look stronger and we play stronger and we have more confidence and there's more of a unity in the team, then I think there's a real argument to start saying, okay, we've sort of fixed the first team environment. The environment is a good place to bring in these younger players and have them learn and have them grow, and we can give them more opportunities. Then I think that's probably the best solution. Again, you look at teams. I've heard this many times, but if you look at teams like Arsenal, there's many cup competitions where they are playing like random 17-year-olds or 18-year-olds. They're random to us, not to the Arsenal fan base maybe, but I'm saying random to us where you just see them playing, like in a Champions League game, they're playing like one of the youngest players to ever play in a Champions League game. But it's because they can afford to. I mean, look at the squad dynamic of their team and look at the squad dynamic of ours. Like Arsenal they've had the same manager for 6 years. They know the way they play. They are very fluid, and the system and everything is in place. Like there is an environment for you to be able to get the young players and put them in there because these guys are confident. They're performing week in, week out. So when you put in the young guy, it's easier for them to come into the team. It's easier for them to learn off of these other guys. If you get the young guy and you throw him into a struggling team that's discombobulated and maybe fighting with each other and not really getting on point, I mean, all you're going to do is fuck up the kid. Because a kid or two being in the squad is not going to change. It's not going to change the team. It's not. It's not going to change the team on a permanent basis because the kids are inconsistent themselves. I mean, kind of prime example, perfect example for me is if you look back to last season, when we put in Amos and we put in Fredrickson, they had good games. But there was also a couple games where they did not have good games. And that's because the team is dysfunctional. The team was not playing good. The team was playing like shit. Those kids are only going to drown in that situation. They are not going to save a bunch of guys that are anywhere from, 6 to 8, 9, 10 years older than them, that have way more experience than them. They're not going to save them. They shouldn't have to be the ones to save them anyway. That's my whole argument on that. But the kids should be there to come in, focus on their game, not brunt the responsibility of the entire Manchester United on their shoulders. They should be there to learn and play and focus on themselves, and just try and have a good game, not be put in to try and save the team, and get 3 points. If they happen to do that, wonderful, but that shouldn't be their responsibility. The responsibility is to try and grow. It's hard to grow if you're in a shitty environment. Yeah, you could even liken that to real life. I mean, people that tend to have a good home with a good environment, they tend to have better opportunities or grow better as a person. Whereas, not that it's impossible and not that it doesn't happen, but if somebody has a rough environment, like they have a rough home or something like that, they tend to have struggles growing and being successful. And sometimes that spurs them on to be even better. But generally, I think if you're talking for the majority of people, or I would say linking it back to the players, the majority, they need a place where it's a good environment. So Gray says, I want Amorim out. He's a rubbish manager. I hate the formation. Shocking in-game management. It's worrying he don't rate Mainoo and Xerxes, etc. Our best technical players will want to leave. Well, I mean, fair play if that's how you feel. But yeah, I don't really know. I don't really have a problem with Xerxes and Mainoo not playing. As long as he's getting results and he's winning. I mean, if you're not getting results and not winning, I think it's a different conversation, because I think then you need to change things. And I think if you refuse to change things, then there's a serious issue on our hand. But we started the season that way. We've now hit a bit of form. And I don't think there's any reason to change it. And also, I just don't see, specifically for Joshua Xerxes, I just don't see where he gets into the team, because I will never, there's no way you can put Joshua Xerxes over Cunha or Mbeumo. He can't even do Mbeumo's role on that side. He would have to do Cunha's role, and I don't think Xerxes is better than Cunha. And then you can make the argument, well, I mean, Sesko has been, not lighting it up necessarily. And he needs to do better, and he needs to develop more. But then I guess you make the argument of, well, if you rate Sesko better for that specific position and striker, I mean, I guess like the argument that Johnny or somebody put in there, would say that, well, how is Sesko going to grow if he's not getting game time? So, I don't know. I mean, I do agree with the fact that if you think that these players are actually good, and I think it's one of his, I think that's one of his problems, one of his negatives, I guess you would say, as Ruben Amorim, is because I don't think he's necessarily lying about these players, but I think one of his problems, from what I see or view or believe, is that, again, he is a guy that seems to be a bit stubborn. So sometimes when it comes to the substitutions, he doesn't make the subs. So it's kind of a contradiction, because he wants to see these, he says he wants to see these players play. He says that they're doing good in training and that they deserve to play. But because we play one game a week, it's hard to play them. And many people are like, Well, but if he actually likes him, then you would give them minutes, at least as a substitute. It's one thing not to start. It's another thing not to get minutes as a sub. But I think if you take the aspect of, look at when he came into this football club a year ago, and look how he acted with substitutions. He is one of these guys that he kind of puts in late subs. He kind of lets things go. He doesn't always. It's not always, but I think a lot of the times he makes late subs. He doesn't change, or he doesn't. I think in his view, he's not panicking. Now people might call that naive, and people might think, well, he's not. He's being reactionary instead of proactive, which is fine. But I'm just saying, from his standpoint, I think that he is a guy that he tends to be quite. When he picks his thing, he tends to quite stick to it, and he doesn't tend to like change too much. So I think, in terms of even the substitutions, unless he really feels like we need a substitution or a change in that specific area, that specific position, I don't think he's going to necessarily make it. So I don't know. He's ruining Delo. He's not a left wing back. Okay, but Grace, this is the thing that I need to. We have to have this argument on. There is nobody, maybe besides you, but there is no way. There is absolutely no way Diego Delo gets into the team over Ahmad. So while you don't like Delo playing on the left, and you think he's ruining him by playing him on the left, I would go as far as to argue that if Ruben didn't play Delo on the left, Delo would not be starting right now. So Delo would be a bench player, and Delo would be coming off the bench, because there is just absolutely no way that Delo is getting in over, not with the way that he's playing right now. With the way Delo is playing right now, how does Delo get in over Ahmad? He does not. There's absolutely no way. So I don't think he's ruining Delo, and I don't think it's on purpose. I think it's like we've explained before. Delo doesn't get in ahead of Ahmad, and on the left-hand side, there's Dorgu and there's Delo. And if Dorgu's playing like shit, or he's not playing good enough to the point of where you make the argument that Dorgu has to start. Dorgu is putting in such good performances, he must be starting. I don't think anybody's arguing for that. He's playing him on the left because why touch the right? Why touch the right? The right is performing exceptionally well. The chemistry between Diallo and Mbeumo is fantastic. It's great. And it's performing well. So why would you touch that side? The left-hand side is the one where there's the problem. And fortunately, or unfortunately, depend how you're looking at it, for Delo, he's the only option to play. He is the only option to play there at this moment in time, because I don't think you put Maz on that side, and Maz has had some fitness issues, and Luke Shaw is playing center-back right now, so he's not an option to play on the left-hand side. So there's nothing really else you can do. And I think he's playing Delo on that side because of experience, purely because of that. I'd prefer Xerxes over Mount, at least. Well, maybe. You know what? I could probably go with you there a little bit, because you know what? I don't necessarily think. I've been trying. I tried to give Mount the benefit of the doubt early on, because I always said that, we need to see him get some consistency run of games, and it's hard to judge him on that. But since Mount has been fit and has been playing, I don't really think Mason Mount is having any sort of type of special impact. So I think Xerxes, technically wise, and I do agree, because I think technically wise, I think Xerxes can be very good. He's shown it in the past. Technicality wise, I do like sort of the aspect that Xerxes can bring to that. But again, that Xerxes, he has to do it either at striker or on the left-sided 10 in the way that it plays, because the right-sided 10 is like a winger, which obviously Xerxes, You don't want to see Xerxes out on the wing. You want to see Xerxes centrally. So yeah, I maybe that one. There's an argument to be made there because it's like, well, you know what? He really likes Mason Mount, and he clearly favorites Mason Mount over other players. And I don't think Mason Mount is doing anything special, but but at the same time, he's not like you and me. I think Ruben views players in different ways than probably a lot of us fans, and I think that's where you get the sort of disagreement between us and him, because I think he's looking at totally different other things. Now, he could be totally wrong, and we could be totally right about it. I'm just saying that I think the reason why that happens is probably because when he's looking at certain, he talks a lot about characteristics. He talks a lot about players' qualities and what they can bring to a specific position. And I think that's why he favorites Mason Mount over the likes of Xerxes, because I think there's just certain things in Xerxes' game that maybe Ruben doesn't feel like goes well with what he calls for in that position. So, but I still think it would be worth the shot, to give Xerxes some minutes over Mount, because I don't think Mount is necessarily doing anything special. It's not like, maybe Mount is having such big impacts in so many games on a consistent basis that, it's warranted the fact that, but there's Mount and there's Cunha. How do you get Xerxes in over both of them? Because they're playing so well. But yeah, I mean, good point, Grace. Mainoo would be playing if he was playing a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. Well, maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. I mean, I don't know. Listen, if we played a 4-3-3, we don't even have enough players to play a 4-3-3. So, playing a 4-3-3 with our current squad of what we have wouldn't even work, because we would only have one. We would only have one substitute midfielder. Maybe you could argue, well, we're playing one match a week, so you could play them 90 minutes every week. Maybe. But if we get an injury or a suspension, well, what do we do then? What do you do with a 4-3-3 with the amount of options that we have? So I don't even think it would necessarily work, because we just don't have the depth for that in terms of a 4-3-3. Maybe a 4-2-3-1, because it's two defensive midfielders, and then you have the attacking mid, and then whether they're inside forwards or whatever they are on the wings. Maybe that one, because it is two defensive mids. But it's still sort of almost can play the same at times. So bring in Fletcher and Kone. But this is the conversation that we've been having, Grace. I mean, Fletcher is part of the squad now because Kobbie Mainoo is out with an injury, apparently, minor knock or something. So he has not traveled with the squad to Spurs. And Jack Fletcher is in the squad. So, I mean, but Jack Fletcher is in the squad to hold the position, I assume, in case of emergency. If we need it, I don't think, because maybe he'll get the minutes that Kobbie was probably getting, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Maybe he doesn't get any minutes. And again, I don't think that these players are necessarily like Jack Fletcher. I don't think Jack Fletcher is actually ready. But if we're at a lack of options in terms of Kobbie's now out, and we don't have any other options, and you would like to have two backup midfielders on the bench as options, well, then we have to go get a Jack Fletcher and put him in the team. But there's nothing else to really do. I don't think these guys are ready. I don't believe a lot of the youth players are ready, because I don't think our first team is ready. If our first team isn't ready, I don't think it's a good idea to bring in the youth players, because I just don't think that they're going to shine. they might play a game or two good, but in the long term, over the course of the season, until our first team finds some legs and consistency and actually plays good together, I just don't think that throwing in these youth guys, like Fletcher and Kone, I just don't think it would really work. I just don't think we would probably be successful with that in a long term strategy type of thing. The midfield is shocking. We need two of Wharton, Baleba, Anderson, Stiller, Ederson. Well, but that's a different story then, and that I could agree with in the fact of that we do need a better midfield and we need to fix it. But look at the difference of what you're talking about. You're talking about Wharton. You're talking about Baleba, Anderson, Stiller, Ederson. Those guys are all playing regular first team football. They're experienced and their games are well more rounded. It's totally different to talking about bringing in Fletcher and Kone, and even maybe to a level of Kobbie Mainoo to a certain extent as well. It's two totally different dynamics. So, I mean, we do have to fix it, or we do have to strengthen it, especially for next season. If we get into Europe, we're going to need a larger squad, 100%. We're going to need a larger squad than what we have right now. So, we're going to need more players. And obviously, the target is for the midfield area. So, I think one of the things here that we got in one of these updates from today is that it was pertaining to the midfield. So, I mean, minimum, if you look at it this way, two midfielders minimum are going to come in 2026. Casemiro is playing well right now, and he's scoring some goals, and he's having a big part in his play. Then we don't need to do it all in January. We could get one in January and one in the summer. I don't expect us to go crazy in January. I think if there's an opportunity, we'll go for it. If there's not, we won't. But yeah, I mean, for this season, I think the only thing that we could really probably necessarily do is bring in the midfielder, and let Kobbie go out on loan and have the midfielder that we need, one of them, and then go for the next midfielder in the summer. But that's all that's really going to happen, because I mean, if Kobbie can't get in right now, it doesn't make sense to have five. So we would have to let Kobbie go on loan. And I think the only way maybe Kobbie goes out on loan is if we could actually bring somebody in January. I would go Wharton and Ederson, both play a midfield 2 and a back 3 formation. Well, I mean, we talked about this. I think probably a Stiller and Wharton would be good. Or Ederson and Wharton. I think can work well as well. But it depends again. I mean, we might have our own ideas for what we think, needs to happen, but I think when it comes to that pairing, I guess it really comes down to Ruben, on and I guess Jason Wilcox as well, on what they actually want that midfield pair to do and to be. Because again, like, Baleba is like sort of a destroyer. So do you want like a destroyer and then sort of more of like a box to box, or a deep line playmaker sort of thing? I guess it depends on the players that they go for, on how they're going to play in that. So, but I think the most balanced, probably well-rounded, would be something like an Ederson Wharton, or a Stiller and Ederson, or a Stiller and Wharton. Something like that would probably be the most balanced all around. So, I mean, if that's what you want, balanced, those are probably your best options. But again, I think it's going to come down to what Ruben wants the players in that position to necessarily do. And I'm not really clear on that, because I mean, I think he has it set up for what we have. But I think if you asked him if you asked him, my sound cut off. No, my sound didn't cut off. My sound is here. Maybe you put me on mute by accident, Ray. Yeah, I think Warren is a deep lying midfielder. Yeah, he is. But what I'm saying is just like you could have it more balanced, or you could have it kind of like what it is now. Because right now it's not really balanced, right, Grace? So I think that's why you're asking for what you're asking for, because you want it to be more balanced. And maybe that's what Ruben Amorim wants. He wants it to be more balanced, but we can't have it balanced for what we kind of got now, I guess, in that certain sense. So he's gone with what he's gone. And he's doing what he can with it. I think if you asked him and he could have his way, I think he would probably go for probably a more balanced approach. But considering what we have, it can't really be that balanced. I mean, if you look at who we have and you look at the options that we're talking about in terms of like, you know, having a Warren and Ederson together, do we have players right now that would make it balanced like a Warren and Ederson would? Do we have that? Do the players have that sort of quality? They don't. You know, like Casemiro and Bruno, they are not. I think Cass is close to one of them, but Bruno, I don't think is not Warren, is not Ederson. I think Kobbie Mainoo is not Warren, is not Ederson, and Ugarte is not Warren, is not Ederson. So those players are totally different to what we have. So you can't. I don't think we could actually really balance it right now for what we have. I think he's gone with sort of an asymmetric type of thing, which is like Casemiro can be sort of a deep line playmaker-ish. Like he does do decently well in terms of linking up the play. You know, as we've seen, he's got involved with a couple goals as well, so he does well in the attacking end, but he is the defensive player. He is the player that we rely on to cut passing lanes, to make the tackles, to be the defensive player. Bruno is not that guy. Bruno can help by running around like a chicken without a head, and he'll kind of give you the energy. But I mean, he's not really that great at defending. He's not really that great in terms of, you know, sometimes he loses his mark. He's not that great with tracking. It's not really in his head because it's not his specialty. But he'll give you the energy, sort of pressing wise. He'll give you the energy in terms of going up forward and running back. And he'll give you the sort of aspect in terms of trying to link the play. And then getting involved, you know, in the attacking opposition. But Bruno really doesn't balance that midfield well in terms of when you compare him with Casemiro. It's a bit balanced, but it's not. We can balance it way more. No midfield too we currently have is balanced. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the problem, Grace, ultimately. And I think he's trying to do some sort of a version of it being balanced. So I totally agree with you. And I think ultimately, at least I hope, because I'm in your camp, Grace, I think we need to actually get in a pair that complement each other way more, and it's way more balanced. My thing is, I just don't know if that's his exact plan. Because again, Ruben does do, or sometimes he makes weird calls, or he looks at things quite differently or abnormal than, I guess, the normal circumstances. And he could be right about it, but he could also be wrong about it. I'm not saying either or. I'm just saying that I don't actually know what. I mean, nobody's asked him. I don't know if he'll give us a direct answer, but I just don't know exactly what is the exact plan for that. For me, I'm just going to trust them on it because I think they do have an idea for it. I think there is a plan. We got to go out and get the targets, and we have to have a good season this season, and we need to finish in Europe. But I think there is a plan about it. I'm going to trust him on it because I think it's similar to the situation of what we just did with the attack. Like, we needed to revamp the attack. We got in 2 10s. We totally changed the dynamic of the attack, and we got in the striker. And I'm kind of looking at that midfield situation as the same thing as the attack. Like, we had 2 10s. We had players that play there. We still have players that play there. We have options in that position. But we went and got 2 10s. And I still think it's a right move because I think Mbeumo and Cunha are really good signings. And I think they're good players. And I think they're going to be, they've had a very big impact for us already very quickly. So I think it was a good move. And now I sort of just look at the midfield as the same. Like, instead of 2 10s, it's 2 8s or an 8 and a 6 or whatever you want it to be. But it's just 2 players in two positions, and I think we need to go and get 2 players, put them in there, have them as options, and then we do what we do with the other players that we got there. Whether they sell them or they fight for a starting spot, maybe they become a squad player, whatever it is. And yeah, I'm kind of looking at it backwards at this kind of situation. Like, our dilemma was we needed a 10. Well, many of us said 1 10, but they went for 2 10s. I think they might be justified in that. But we needed 2 10s and a striker. Now we need 2 midfielders and a center back is what I'm arguing for. So we're kind of doing the inverse. And I think that is probably their plan, to go for 2 to 2. So Richard's here as well. What's up, Richard? How you doing? It's been a while, my good friend. How are you doing? Gray says, what if we played Ugarte or Cass as our center back and play Mainoo and Bruno in a double pivot? What if we played Ugarte? So what would you want them to do in that? You would want the center back, you would want him to kind of push up and sort of operate as like a holding midfielder in certain situations or something like that, and then just have Bruno and Mainoo playing as like, a 6 and an 8 or whatever, like or an 8 and an 8 or whatever. Is that what you're saying? Because I think that's plausible, and I think we can do something like that. I don't know if he would put Ugarte as center back or Cass for that to specifically do, but we've seen that a little bit in terms of the match where Luke Shaw, I think it happened twice, but once was Luke Shaw and once was Lenny Yoro. Now, when we did it with Lenny Yoro against City, it didn't really work that well. Yeah, we got kind of exposed with that. But when last time when we did it, I think it was against Brighton. We kind of did that in terms of like Luke Shaw and not the center back, but the left center back dropping into the midfield and kind of creating that sort of a double pivot in close to it. I mean, it allowed Bruno to go forward. Cass obviously kept his spot. But we could probably do something like that. I think if Ruben feels like the game calls for it, maybe the tactics or, the opposition, what they got in their team calls for it, then, maybe we could do that. Richard says, let Mainoo go, just another Garnacho. I don't think so, Richard. I don't think so. I think, I don't think it's the same situation. Again, I think the way the story is being portrayed, my friend, is to make it seem like that there is a bigger issue than there really is. I think the way people are writing this update and stories is to kind of blow it out of proportion for clicks and likes, because they want to make it a big talking point, because it sort of is a big talking point, but they're trying to sell it. I don't think there is necessarily a huge... I don't think Kobbie is being necessarily unprofessional in terms of like showing up to training. I think he's putting in the work. He's a quiet guy. He's not doing weird shit on social media. And I don't think there's a problem between him and Amorim. I think they are getting along just fine. I think that they're just not eye to eye on this certain thing, because Ruben's looking more long term. And Kobbie, because of this World Cup, he's looking short term. And I think there's just a disagreement on that in terms of just the way they view it. I don't think that that's a big deal. I don't think that that's a huge problem. I think way worse shit goes on behind the scenes in the football world. And I feel like sometimes when these things happen, I feel like us normal people, and by normal people I just mean fans, because we're not divulged in that world. I feel like we take it. I feel like what we do is we take like we try to put it in a personal scenario, like we try to put it sort of in a workplace environment, because essentially it is a workplace environment, but we tried to put it in our normal workplace environment, and it's just a different environment. Like, it is a workplace environment for them, but it's totally different than to like an office job or something like that. So I don't think it's necessarily that much of an issue. I just think that we need to. I think we just, there needs to be a bit more clarity on it, and there needs to be more of a decision made on it. Because again, I don't think Ruben is helping himself with the way he's saying certain things. I think he should be more direct about it, and he should be more stern about it. Like, when he does the interview and he says, Kobbie deserves to play, but how do you play him? I think he should just address it more in terms of that. He should just be more direct about it and say, Kobbie is the future. I want Kobbie to stay. Kobbie's not going anywhere. In terms of like, Kobbie Mainoo will not be sold. And just shut everything down pretty much. But he hasn't really done it. I don't know if he's grasping the situation under that. So I think he's answering it in his way, but I think it's leading to conversations of contradictions, because he's saying the things he's saying, but then people feel like he's not getting enough minutes. I don't think Kobbie is really making a huge deal about it. I think Kobbie is kind of just making a statement of, hey, I would like more game time. If I don't have a chance for game time, please send me a loan, because I'd like to be part of the World Cup. And that's pretty much it. I don't think like Kobbie is like, flipping chairs and tables and cursing out Ruben Amorim, and I don't think he's necessarily leaking shit to the media and trying to cause problems. I think it's just a fairly regular professional procedure that's going on. Yeah. Gray says, if we could have only one of Cunha or Mbeumo. It's difficult, man. It's a good question, Grace. I love your questions, because you come up with really good questions. It's hard. I think at this moment in time, right now, I would lean more towards Mbeumo. And I don't know, there might be a bit of bias in that for me. I might be a little, when I say bias, I mean because he's a player that plays in a way that I really like and want players to play. So maybe I'm favoriting him a little bit more. But I really like Mbeumo. I think all around, when you compare him to Cunha, I think Mbeumo all around is a lot. He's a lot more well-rounded. I think he can offer a lot more. It's not to say that Cunha doesn't offer anything, but I just think I just really like the way Mbeumo plays. That's why I was really happy that we were going to sign him, because I just, seeing him play at Brentford, knowing the way he played, I just really believe that was like his game is really well-rounded. I mean, the physicality he has, the speed, and then just the way he plays the game, the attitude and the mentality he has when he's playing on the pitch. His decision making in terms of, he's not afraid to have a shot. He's got a good shot on him. He can do this sort of thing. But also, he will try and get you an assist. He can put in good passes and good crosses and stuff like that. And he does have sort of good link-up play. So for me, I think I would go with Mbeumo. But, I mean, it's close. Yeah, it's not like there's a huge gap, because I really, really like Matheus Cunha as well. So, oh my God. Super chat coming in. If I pronounce your name wrong, I apologize. I try my best. If you want, you can help me say it. So, Yo, why do you guys have always the most difficult name, man? Sanchi Tashi. Can I just call you Table? Can I call you Sanchi? Sanchi says, first time on your channel from India. Do you think Frank is better than Ruben? Well, thank you for the super chat. I greatly appreciate it, and welcome to the channel. And happy to have you here, buddy. Do I think that Frank is better than Ruben? It's a good question. I think it's a hard question. I would say maybe right now at this current moment in time, I would say there's a good case for it. I would say right now, you know what? Maybe he is a better manager than Ruben. I think I would chalk that down to I think he's got more experience than Ruben. And he's got more experience in the Premier League. And actually, to be fair to Thomas Frank, he does play, or he does try to promote a good brand of football. Yeah, like I really like the football that played at Brentford. He sort of brung that to Tottenham. I think it fits Tottenham very well for what they have. I think actually Tottenham made a very good choice in getting him. And I think he's way better than, Postecoglou. So I think right now, yeah, but I think Ruben could have the potential to be, a very, very good manager. But I think Ruben is very young into his career. He doesn't have the experience in the Premier League that Thomas Frank has. But I would say right now, yeah, probably because of those things, probably because of the Premier League experience. And, he's done very well. He did very well at Brentford for what Brentford are. He had them playing really good football, and he's gone to Spurs, and I still think it's a honeymoon period, and it's yet to be seen, but we will see. And, tomorrow we got to play Spurs, so we'll see tactically how the match goes. I think Thomas Frank has sort of an advantage on that level because, again, I think he's more experienced to the Prem. Actually, while you brung that up, real quick, let's throw in stats, because I do have stats, and we'll talk about this, and we'll hit this front real quick. So give me a second, and let me pull this up wherever it may be on my phone, which I don't know where it went, but here it is. So for the match tomorrow, give me this, get me to the match, because I actually want to see. This is absolutely insane. So I mean, Thomas Frank does have the one record, the one win over Ruben Amorim. Yeah. So right now it's 1-0 Thomas Frank, in that aspect. But if we look at sort of this thing, and this is kind of crazy because I've never actually seen this. So individual team streaks between United and Tottenham, United have all the team streaks. There's no actual concurrent team streak for Tottenham, which means that they've been fairly inconsistent, or their matches have been just different in all of them. They don't seem to be hitting any sort of patterns, even though, we're on the same points and they're 2 spots above us. But what I'm saying is, like, we have no losses in 4, but we also have no clean sheet in 3. So we need to figure that out. 8 out of our 9 last matches, there's been 3+ goals. 5 out of the 6 of our last matches, both teams have scored. 5 of the 6 last matches, we have been the team to score first, which is very good for us. We need to continue that trend. 5 out of our 6 last matches, we've had the first half winner. So we've been winning at halftime, which is another one that we need to continue and carry over. Spurs have none of these. Spurs have none of these things going for them. So their matches are constantly different, which is there's an aspect of, inconsistency on some levels. Sometimes they perform maybe really high, maybe not. Maybe there's a lot of goals, maybe there's not a lot of goals. So they don't have any of these things trending for them specifically. Now, head to head, Tottenham have beaten us 4 times. That was last year, and that was under Postecoglou. I think things are going to be different because it's just a different way of playing. It's a different manager, different tactics, different idea. And Thomas Frank has bested Ruben Amorim once, but it's not on the level that Postecoglou did last season. Yeah, so He's got him 1-0. Amorim can tie it up, can tie up the score 1-1. But head to head directly, I mean, they've beaten us 4 times in a row. They haven't lost in 7 in the last 7 meetings. We've had no clean sheets in the last 7 meetings, so that's not good either. And Tottenham have been the first to score 5 out of the 6 last times we played each other. They've had the first half winner 4 out of the 5 last times we played each other. And in the last 10 matches, Tottenham have beaten us 5 times, we've drawn twice, and United have won 3 times. So head-to-head wise, we don't have the edge. But in current form wise, we have the edge. So it's going to be interesting to see if we break the cycle. It's going to be a good test. So, but I need to go back to some of our members real quick. I'm going to jump back and forth because listen, if you put in the super chat, I'll go to the super chat immediately. But I got to go back. Gray says everyone is better than Ruben. You may please call me Sanji. Okay, I will call you Sanji. No problem. Sanji says, follow-up question. Would you have liked Frank to United rather than Ruben? I'm going to be honest with you. At the time, I did not. I was not in favor of Thomas Frank coming to Manchester United. I just kind of felt like maybe he needed to go to a Tottenham or something like that first. But I'm going to be totally 100% honest. When we fired Ten Hag and Frank was brought up, I was against it. I have sort of changed my mind on that, and it's not necessarily because it's not because Thomas Frank has done any better or anything like that. I just kind of changed my viewpoint in the fact of that if this thing doesn't work out with Ruben Amorim, it's not to say that we shouldn't be going maybe for foreign managers, but I was starting to think, if you look at the inclusion of the likes of Cunha and the likes of Mbeumo, who have Premier League experience, and you look at the way they've come into our team, and you look at there hasn't really been a great transition time, and they've had sort of a big impact right away, and they seem a lot more comfortable. And when when I seen that, I started thinking, well, if it goes for the player, then you can make an argument that happens for the manager as well. Because again, if you look at it, like I just said, Thomas Frank, I mean, he's been in the Premier League for quite some time. He's had this experience. And he's done, again, I think he's done quite well. I just felt like at that time, I felt like maybe considering the mess we were in and sort of maybe a little bit of his personality, that I just felt like, I don't know, I was like, he might come here and it might just eat him alive. And I was just like, I don't know if he's necessarily ready for that. But at the same time, you know what, maybe I think maybe I was kind of wrong about that because the way he plays, I like the brand of football. I feel like it would fit United if we were to play it. I don't know about now because we changed their squad, but I think it plays a brand that is similar to kind of how United used to play or would want to play. And he does have the Premier League experience. So, seeing how it went with Ruben and seeing the fact of that, we made such a large change and we did. He came in, he plays a brand of football and a style of football and a formation that is totally different to, what we had in the squad and the pieces we had in the squad. And even you saw a little bit of his naivety. Yeah. Like he was doing well at Sporting, but it's the Portuguese league and it's totally different to the Prem. And he was doing well in Europe though. Yeah. He was doing well in the Champions League with his Sporting team. And you're talking about a Portuguese team competing in the European competition, in the highest European competition. And they were doing well there with his system and his style. But I think you saw that period when he came in from November, the adjustments that had to be made with the players to the system, but then also the adjustments of Ruben having to learn the English league, being at Manchester United at a period where we're playing 3 matches a week. We're in the midst of a season. he doesn't have a preseason, and he doesn't have any players, or he has a lack of options for the way he wants to play. I think we've seen what's come from that. I mean, it was sort of it was a disaster. It was a mess. It was very, very bad. And I think it's because he had a lack of Premier League experience. He had a lack of understanding about the English game. I still think he does, but I don't. It's not as much. Like, I think he's learned. I think he's changed some things. I think he's understood some things better. But again, he's about to be here for a year. When you compare it to Thomas Frank, I mean, he has way more experience. He's been doing this for way longer. He understands the league way better, and his system and his style and his pattern are way more padded down. And he's been a manager longer than Ruben has as well. So, you would have taken, Grace says she would have taken Frank Lampard over Ruben. No way. You're crazy. I'm not. I would never take Fat Frank in my club because he played for Chelsea and he managed Chelsea. Although he is doing quite good, isn't he? Where he's at. What team is he at again? I heard he was doing quite well. So, Richard says, well, in 2001, we were 3-0 down at halftime, then won 5-3. Rare goal on that day from Laurent Blanc. Well, yeah. Sanji says, please, for God's sake, get to low access to this club. Grace says, I agree, he's been awful this season. I find that I'm laughing. You'll understand why at one point, Sanji, if you stick around, you'll understand why. Yeah. Oh, Coventry. Yeah, I heard he's doing quite well there. So, I mean, good for him. Nothing wrong with him. I call him Fat Frank as a joke. Yeah, Sanji says, I don't want to dwell on the past, but letting Rude go was a huge mistake. Ruben needed someone to understand the Premier League. You know what? That's not a bad point in terms of that. I mean, if I understand what you're saying, and I could see how that could have massively helped. And Rude did do, he did do good to steady the ship. There's an issue with, Ruben bringing his team, and I see how that point is quite valid because, Ruben bringing his team, I mean, those guys don't understand the Premier League either, and I think that was, I think that was part of the struggle. I think, you, in that aspect, you could be quite right in terms of that, he bring about 4 or 5 people with him. They all came from the Portuguese league. They're all unfamiliar with English football. So not only was Ruben unfamiliar with English football, but his entire sort of coaching staff to a certain level, was unfamiliar with the league and stuff like that. And I think that's what made that transition period so hard. And there's always the argument that, I mean, Rude wanted to stay. He was willing to help in whatever possible way he could. So if it's not an assistant manager, it could have been a coach. I think just the one problem with that, and I made the argument for it at the time, and I still feel like I still don't know which decision would be the right decision, is that, Rude doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Ruben, the way Ruben plays or Ruben's staff. And I don't know how I necessarily feel about forcing managers to take on staff members that they don't really feel like they need to work with or, fits into their sort of plans. So I don't know if it would have been such a good idea to kind of, because I don't think obviously clearly Ruben wanted him, because I think Ruben felt like he had his guys and he had his team and he didn't need any more. He had all aspects covered in that. But you know what? It could have helped. But there was also that dynamic, and I don't think it would have been good. The fact that many people, there was a lot of fans out there that they wanted Rude to be the caretaker for the rest of the year. They wanted Rude to be given a shot to be the manager. I don't know if it would create such a good dynamic publicly throughout the fan base if you had Rude still there and Amorim is there. Because it could have went. Because the whole time, especially for how it went, right? Now picture this. For the way it went, and maybe it would have went different if Rude was there, but if it went the same and Rude was there, the amount of people talking about just sack Ruben and let Rude take over and come back in as caretaker because he's still there would have been crazy. Would have been literally like every day. They would have just been like, Ruben's getting sacked and Rude's getting put in as caretaker again. So I don't know. It's very difficult. There's too many sides to say but this could have happened or that could have happened. But I mean, it is, a good observation, I would say, Sanchi. It's a good observation. Because you know what, I think it's a fair point on both sides. You can make an argument about that. So, Grace says this is a Delo hate channel. Only reason I don't. Yeah, that's right. Delo out. Delo, get out. Get out, Delo. You suck. You suck. You're the worst player. You're the worst player. I hate Delo, man. I hate Delo. I hate him. Get out. We all hate Delo. Before every match, we do a ritual on this show where we have Delo voodoo dolls, yeah, and then we poke him in the leg, in the head. That's why he can't pass. That's why. I can't even keep that up. I'm totally joking. Richard says, look, I think we will do better than last season, but we are not winning the league or the FA Cup with Ruben. Well, I mean, we don't know. It depends how far the project goes. It depends how long it's going to take. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen this year. An FA Cup, I mean, it's a cup match. So, I don't know. Anything can happen. I mean, even for Ten Hag, in the first season, nobody really expected him to get third, and nobody expected him to win a trophy. I mean, before we started the season, nobody had that goal at all. There was zero people's expectation. I think with the cup match, it's totally different to the league, but, with the cup, with like a cup, you just got to turn up for that one game and do it every time we have a match, and advance to the stages. So I don't know. I mean, listen, the FA Cup's coming up in January. We have some time in between then and now. And I guess it depends, what we're looking like. I mean, if we're a lot more consistent and we're, making runs like we are now, like if we can extend this sort of run and make it maybe like, 5 matches unbeaten, and make it 4 wins, 4 wins out of 5, and we can sort of continue this, and we're looking consistent, then maybe we have a good shot of going through the FA Cup and getting to a decent position, or maybe ultimately winning it. I mean, I don't know, but the league is far. Yeah, the league is far. I think we're well to be 2 points within the table, within second place. We're 2 points and we're in the mix, and I think that's well, and I think that's what we need to be. We need to be in the mix, definitely, and we need to try and capitalize on every opportunity, because every week this league is going to be handing out opportunities, and it's going to be like a roller coaster, because sometimes it's going to go in our favor like it did 2 weeks ago or so. But sometimes it's going to go against us in a little bit, like kind of like last week, where we felt like we could have got 3 points. We blew the opportunity. We ended up getting a point, so it wasn't like the ultimate worst. But, the other teams capitalized on us dropping 2 points, whereas we capitalized on them the previous week or two. So, we will see. We sacrifice to low dolls every time he makes a ship pass. I had it. Where is my Delodol? I don't know where it is. I'll have it for the next. I'll have it for the show tomorrow. When we do the Red Devil recap. Sanchi says, now the present and future. What's done is done. However, don't you think January transfer window is super important for us to even come close to the Champions League or Europa League? Well, I think so. I think, I've been sort of making this argument. I think many of us make this argument for quite some time, is that Manchester United, no matter what we do, we can't necessarily stand still in January. We can't do like we do in the past because every team looks to do business in January. They look to, if they need a player in one position, they generally tend to go get it, which generally tends to go help them. So we need to do the same. Now, I will understand, and I've said this before many a times, but I will understand the club's position because I sort of agree with it that, listen, if we have 3 midfield targets and they are our top 3 targets, let's just say it's Warden, Anderson, and Baleba, yeah? And those are our top 3 targets. And we can't actually get those targets because, it's just impossible. The clubs don't want to sell. If they do want to sell, they're going to ask for something ridiculous like 150 million, which we obviously shouldn't be paying. If we can't negotiate it, if there's just no way for us to actually do the deals in January, then what I don't agree with the football club doing and them saying that they're not going to do this is I don't agree with the football club saying, well, our top 3 targets are unattainable in January, so let's go and buy the 4th option, which is the 4th best option, because it's the one we can kind of do now, and we got to get him in now, because we need somebody now. So, but what I would like Manchester United to do is to try. I would like them to try. I would like them to make an effort. I would like them to try and put some sort of a... I would like them to put some sort of a... I would like them to put some sort of an effort in terms of, like, in January. I would like to see them test the waters, test the resolve of the other clubs. Like, put in a bid. Put it out there. I mean, I think if we've been looking at these players and we're constantly working on transfers, we should have a lot of the information. Put in a bid, but throw a bid in for Elliot Anderson, 60 million to Nottingham Forest. See what they do. Maybe they're willing to negotiate. Maybe Anderson pushes for it and forces their hand a little bit. Or maybe they just totally reject it. But again, I think if we sort of test the waters, if we poke and prod a little bit, and we actually show that, listen, we tried to put in a bid for Anderson, they rejected it. Nothing we could do about it. I think the fans will be okay with that. But then on top of that, on the reverse side of that, if that's what happens, we need to be smart and we need to look at the other options because there's always loans to be done. And if there is a guy out there that maybe, this guy potentially fits our squad, he's available for loan, and maybe we could instill a buy option in there, we should be doing that. We should be bringing in sort of a test drive player that's, we're not 100% committed to in terms of that, it's not like we're permanently buying him. We're going to bring him on loan. We'll see how he fits into the team or to the squad. We'll see how he plays with us. We got 6 months to test drive him. If he's good, we could sign him up. If not, then we send him back and we move on. Richard says, no, we are getting a European place at best, and probably the Conference League, maybe Europa. Well, I don't know. I think United can finish as the table stands, and as we are right now. I think United can probably finish anywhere from 4th to 8th. Probably, realistically, 4th to 8th place. It just depends on what we do. But I can't say because I just don't know how things are going to go. We could hit a really good period of like a really good form. Or we could go back to being really, really inconsistent.
I think I don't know where the tables are actually going to land. We're in a bit of uncharted territory right now in terms of that. We're doing all right. We need to improve some things. We need to be better for sure, but I think we have improved on some things, and that has to be evident because we won 3 matches in a row and we're 4 unbeaten. Um, but it's all about how long can we keep this up, and not only how long can we keep it up, but when it does suffer a blow, which would be a loss in my opinion, um, what is the response to that? Do we bounce back immediately? Do we go into a sort of a purple patch, like a bad patch of form after that, and we do like 3 or 4 games where we're dropping points now? It really depends. I think this season, open for opportunity, is that it's a bit unknown, and that it could go really well, it could be mediocre, or it could end up being shit. But I don't think, just feels a bit of the unknown to me because I just don't know. I don't think last year was like. I don't think last year can be used as the representation for this year. I just don't think that correlates with each other. So, where's your Delodol? You set him on fire last game, remember? I need a new Delodol then. I'm gonna make one. Sanchi says, I am 42, seen some watched done. I will go only for short-term loans with experienced players just to qualify. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably our best option, and I don't see why not. I think in the midfield specifically, Sanchi, I think in the midfield, there's always a lot of options, especially for loans. I think there's a lot of movement that we could do there. I think strikers is very limited. It's limited as it is. I mean, even in the summer, you see the limited amount of options there is for the strikers, and you saw how many teams were looking for a striker. Arsenal, us, Chelsea were in for strikers. They got strikers. Like, everybody was looking for high quality strikers, and there isn't an abundance of them, and teams are reluctant to let them go, and they make the transfer business hard for them because there isn't so many of them. But midfielders, now, a certain level, maybe you could argue, but just generally, in general, midfielders, there's a lot more of them. And when I think of January, like loans or even deals, there's always constantly like a bunch of midfielders that are moving. They're either getting loaned out or they're doing permanent moves. So I think, considering we need a midfielder, if we can't buy in our top target, I don't want them to be spending money because that's the shit we've done in the past, and they've said that as well. When they say they're not going to panic, that's what they mean. They know we need a midfielder, but if we can't get our number 1 target or our number 2 target, they're not going to go and get like the 5th choice target because that option is still technically on the table. It's just not available right now. Going for the 5th target in January is a panic buy. So best thing is we go in for a loan. I mean, there's, kind of like we did with Sabitzer or something like that. I mean, there is Conor Gallagher, and there might be a couple other players that we're not being told about right now that could be on our radar. So, yeah, I think that's the best option. But we have to do something, you know what I mean? Like, we got to be active. We got to be looking to make moves. We need to be trying. We can't, and I don't think we are, but I'm just saying, like, we can't be like United of the past where we just like twiddle our thumbs and we're like, yeah, but it's, it's the first quarter and businesses don't do, businesses don't do business in the first quarter. So we're not going to do any business and we're just going to sit here and twiddle our thumbs. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think the discussion is just whether are we going to be able to get somebody permanent that is a top target, or are we going to end up maybe getting a loan or two, or maybe like a younger talent, maybe one that's a little bit more for the future. Richard says we will improve, but I know we are not back to winning ways. Well, I don't think we're back to winning ways. We've got a long road ahead of us. But this could be the start, of something that is better progression. I think we're far away of being back to winning ways to where we want to be. I think Ruben Amorim will be the first person to tell you that. I think Jason Wilcox will be the second person to tell you that, and I think the third will be the players to tell you that. I think they all understand that at this current moment in time. I think that's why it feels a bit different to me, because I think in the past our players, again, we go beat a City or we beat a Liverpool. And I think our players used to get too carried away and think that they've just conquered the world and now they're the greatest. But if the messaging from Ruben, the messaging from Jason Wilcox, who's basically running the show, and I think that messaging transferring to the players, I think the players actually understand that they're still far away from achieving anything. So I think they're being kept quite grounded, which is what they need to be. They need to be grounded in what they're doing. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I think it's a bit of an unknown. I don't know how it's necessarily going to go. We just got to take it week by week. But I will say Saturday is a test, because again, are we going to be able to reverse some of these things? I mean, we've managed to do 3 wins. First it was 2, now we've done 3. We hadn't done that for a couple of years. We managed to beat Liverpool for the first time in 9 years at Anfield. So we've been in a bit of a sort of a curse breaking trend, yeah? So this one is Tottenham. They beat us 4 times. We're going to be away from home. And it's another test because, again, I think I'm going to be fair here. We need to stay in the game tomorrow's match. We need to be in the game. We need to be the whole 90 minutes. We need to be in the game. We can't fall out of it. We can't let them outplay us or completely dominate us. But the biggest issue I have is that we still need to fix something when it comes to the mentality or the attitude, whichever one, because our away form is disastrous compared to our home form. So we're obviously away. So it's another big test. We got to go play a team that bested us, totally dominated us last season. They're at home, and we struggle away from home in general. So it is another big test. So I'm excited to see what we're going to get out of the match, because, listen, if we go there, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if we go there and we beat them like 2-1, 3-1, or something like that, if we can get the win and we score multiple goals, I'm going to be super excited, because I think that for me is a passing of a huge test. To go away from home, play a very good match, get a few goals, and walk away with the 3 points when we've been struggling in away form. So, Richard says the next live game I'm going to is January 17th against City. Nervous already. Well, I mean, best of luck, and we'll see. We'll see. Maybe they'll calm your nerves, or maybe you'll be even more nervous, depending on how we are when we're closer to that time, Richard. Because I think it's going to impact on what we're looking like and where we are. When we get around there. I'd probably say end of December. You'd have a clearer picture, and then you're going to know if you're going to be feeling a lot more nervous, or maybe you'll feel a little bit more calm, depending on how we are. Sanji says, can Bruno be benched? If not, what's the point getting new signings? Well, it's a good question. Can he be benched? I don't think he can. Necessarily, I don't think he can. I don't think he can in terms of that. Again, it's weird. I'm not a manager. But that's the point of the manager. You're supposed to manage situations and manage, aspects. And again, it's like, can Bruno be benched? I don't think he can, unless somebody is totally outplaying him. But I think what makes it so difficult is that he has been deemed as the leader of the football club. How do you bench the leader of your football club? How do you bench your captain? Because I think if he was a regular player, it would be less of an issue because then he's just another player. But the captain thing, I think, is probably saving him because once you deem a player a captain, whether you like it or not, he is technically within the squad. He's deemed as the more important player or the most important player in the squad, which is why you are the captain. I mean, you make your most important and influential player that you believe you have the captain. So how do you bench if the dynamic and the view is that Bruno is our most influential, whether you agree with it or not? You could think he's shit, and that's fine. We're not here to argue that. But what I'm saying is from the people that are in charge of the football club, from the manager that is in charge, and the coaching staff, they deem that Bruno, because they deem him as one of the most influential and one of the best players we got, which is why he is the captain. How do you make the argument to bench the player that they view as one of the most influential and highly impactful and skilled players at our club? I just don't think that you can make an argument to convince them to be able to do that. So, I mean, I get in the point of like, well, if he can't be benched, what's the point of bringing in somebody else? Again, that midfield sort of situation is weird. I mean, if I think if somebody is available to loan in, then at the very least we can loan Kobbie out and let him go play. And whoever we loan in, I guess it depends on their experience, and I guess it depends on, you know, their ability as well, because I think there'll be a difference for, like, let's say we loan in Conor Gallagher. Well, Conor Gallagher has different sorts of qualities. He's very good at the pressing, he's very good at the tackling, but he's quite obviously way more experienced than Kobbie Mainoo. So maybe he'll get more game time. Maybe, you know, he'll change something up. He has different qualities. Maybe he'll make the team play in a different sort of dynamic or aspect. Maybe he doesn't have to necessarily bench Bruno. Maybe he'll put him in next to Bruno or something like that. So, you know, I don't know. It's a puzzle. But you know what the thing is? Like, the good thing is that it's not necessarily up to us to fix. You know what I mean? It's up for them to figure it out, and it's up for them to find a solution. Thank God, because my head hurts thinking about it and thinking about it and talking about it. So, right now the team is around Bruno. I think it's always been around Bruno. It's always been around Bruno, and unfortunately, you know, it's not Bruno's fault. I think Bruno catches a lot of flack for that, and people get angry at Bruno, and they're like, bro, Bruno always plays and he's never benched. And they kind of transfer that hate to Bruno, but it's not Bruno's fault. Bruno didn't buy himself. Bruno didn't try and build the whole team around him. Bruno doesn't pick himself, didn't make himself the captain. It ain't his fucking fault, you know? So I think that the anger gets misplaced onto Bruno for no reason, because he's just a guy that plays, that tries to do well for the team. If he doesn't do well, he doesn't do well. He plays like shit. But again, that's about the only thing that maybe is on him, is that his self-performances while he's on the pitch. But you know, if he's playing like shit and people don't like the way he's playing and he's playing like shit, well, you can't blame Bruno for continuing to be picked. You can't blame Bruno for being the captain. I mean, you know, Ruben has kept him the captain. Ten Hag has made him the captain. And Ali was playing him every game. So there's 3 managers that have been doing this. So, you know, it's a peculiar situation. Richard, yes, end of December. If we're up the table, it is 20 Guinnesses per day. If we're down the table, it's 40 Guinnesses per day. I like that math. That checks out. No one player should define Manchester United. Sir Matt wouldn't do it. Sir Alex would not do it. Well, I think the problem is right now is that I think that's where we were, Richard. I think that's where we were. I don't know if they intentionally did that or it just sort of became that way. But I agree, and I don't like the dynamic at all. I don't like the dynamic of, again, there is absolutely no way you can be successful as a football team or a football club by being a one-man team. It doesn't work. I don't think it's ever worked. The only way it will kind of work is if you have somebody like Ronaldo or Messi. And at that point, I mean, look at the teams Ronaldo and Messi played in. They might have won a lot of matches by themselves on their back, but is it really by themselves? Because they always had quality around them as well. It's not like you took Ronaldo and it's not like you took Messi and you stuck them at Accrington Stanley and told them go fucking win the championship or whatever it is, and just they're out there by themselves, basically just winning the whole game. Like it's not gonna work. And I think what happened is like Bruno was he was a talented he's a talented player. Like he was a talented signing. He had a big impact, but the thing that we always argued was like the level of players around him never actually could match the impact. They just can't have the same impact. I think what we're seeing now though is, and we talked about it last time, the Brighton match was the first match. I believe if this is accurate in terms of what they said. Brighton match was the first match that we've played where we scored 4+ goals and Bruno Fernandes was not involved in any of them. He didn't score one and he didn't assist one. That was the first time that happened since we signed Bruno Fernandes. Because I believe the first match that Bruno played, I believe we ended up scoring 4. So I think it was like in literally his very first match. Since then, since that time, anytime if we ever scored like 4 goals, he has been involved in that. And Brighton was the first time we did that. And I think that's because if you look at the additions that we did, if you look at the addition of Cunha, if you look at the addition of Mbeumo to the squad, to the team, and to the attack, we don't, and Bruno's playing deeper. We are actually with their additions, we're moving away from solely relying on one player. We are creating a different dynamic in which we don't have to rely on Bruno Fernandes every match. Bruno can technically, I mean, he's in the midfield, so you need him to play good. But technically, before, Bruno was the face of the entire attack. If Bruno couldn't create chances, if Bruno had a shit game, if Bruno couldn't put one into the net, we struggled highly offensively. Like, highly creating chances, highly to score goals, because we relied on Bruno to create all the chances all the time. We don't need that anymore. So, if Bruno doesn't have the greatest game, but Mbeumo and Cunha are having really good games, I think we'll be okay. Because we don't have to rely on one player anymore. Technically, we're relying on 2 players, but listen, I mean, if you're relying on those 2 guys, and Bruno's doing the job that he's supposed to be doing and he's performing, and then you got the backline performing, well, now we got a bunch of players doing their jobs and performing the way they're supposed to be performing. So, Ronaldo was 100% the talented signing, but in context, so was Cantona. Best Brian Robson, Dennis Law, and Dennis Violet. Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, like, listen, they're all talented. What I'm trying to get at is it doesn't matter. Even the most talented players in a game of in a life of football, you could have the most talented people, and all those people that Richard just named, like even Cantona. It wasn't like Cantona went out there by himself and was like some sort of it wasn't like he didn't have quality around him. It wasn't like it was Cantona and everybody else was complete shit, which I think for a period of time, at some point, we were basically saying, and I think people said the same thing for Pogba, but, Bruno was having such an impact, match in, match out, assist and goal in the same match, creating the chances, like, nobody else was having that impact. And so if Bruno doesn't, at that time, if Bruno doesn't do good, our team is fucked, because he is the main guy. Like, he is the guy creating, he's also the guy scoring, and he's also the guy getting assists. If he's having a shit game, then who's creating, who's scoring, and who's assisting? Nobody. Unless on the rare day we get lucky and somebody happened to step up. But on a consistent basis, he was the one that was doing it on a consistent basis. But when you mention those players, like Cantona, right? I mean, he helps, but look at the players he had around him, and look at the team he went into, and look at the system he was in, and look at how he was the puzzle that fit in there. Yeah, look at he was a piece of the puzzle that went in there. Yeah, he wasn't one guy with a bunch of shit around him. And you could say the same for Best and Robson and Dennis Law and Dennis Viley. You could say it for all of them. They are very talented players, but look at the teams they went into. Look at who was with them. You know, if Cantona happened to play like shit, if Cantona happened to have a bad game, it wasn't like it is a certain loss, but the team was more balanced so that they can pick up the slack and actually perform and be like, Cantona's having a shit game. He's having an off game. It's not his game, but we're not lost. We're not out because we have other players that can provide, right? But they were important players, and they were a huge piece of a puzzle that we needed. But I think, again, if you're fair, if you look back in like the last 4 years, I just always felt like there was Bruno was here in terms of impact, in terms of making things happen. There's Bruno was here, and everybody else was down here. And if Bruno is not hitting here, nobody reaches that level on a consistent basis. Every once in a while, we'd have somebody have a game, and it's great, and you know, it is what it is. But on a consistent level. But now I feel like with the additions that we got, even Sonny Lemon's coming in with his mentality and attitude and what's going on in the back. Matthijs de Ligt stepping up and being good. I think I like Yoro very much for a young lad. I think he has. I think I like the aggressiveness in his game. Luke Shaw is actually doing good, and he's finally an experienced player. He's stepping up and he's taking some of the mantle up. And Casemiro is an experienced player, and he's pulling his weight. So I feel like a lot of players in our team in different positions currently are actually pulling their weight, and they're sort of, to a certain level, a lot of them are performing at the same level. And I don't think it's such a big gap. Now, I would say, Cunha and Mbeumo are probably two of our best performing players. I would put Ahmad in that category as well, and I would put de Ligt. Specifically, those four players, I think, are the top four performing players that we have right now in the squad in different positions. But I feel like the other players that I didn't mention, they're not too far off of them. I think the gap used to be way bigger. I think it used to be like, we might have two very good performing players and everybody else was really, really far away. I think right now, how the squad looks and how it feels, I feel like everybody is sort of close to each other. There's a couple edging some others out, but I think they're close. Richard says, you need a team to support great players. I will say this. I think Cunha and Mbeumo actually get that. I think they do. And I think they're really good additions. And this is why I'm encouraged. Because if you listen to Jason Wilcox, I like the ideas that he gives. But, there's cynical asshole people everywhere. And people will say it's just PR bullshit and they don't like Ineos and whatever. If that's your opinion, go ahead. That's fine. But for me, personally, I have no problem giving people opportunities. I have no problem giving people chances. And you could think whatever you want about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and that's fine. I mean, he's not my favorite person either, but I do like Jason Wilcox. I like Christopher Vivell. And I like the ideas that Jason Wilcox has. I like his philosophy. I think it is one that warrants to make a good team. And when you listen to him talk about the players that we're scouting, the players that we're bringing in, what we're looking at when we're going to bring, I think they are the fundamentals to actually create a good winning team. And I think that it's being exemplified through the signings of like Cunha and Mbeumo, even Sonny Lemons. And I think maybe Sesko we got to see, but I think there's something in Sesko there, but I think it's going to just take him time. But even with Lemons and that stuff, like, look at their character, look at their attitude. I mean, Lemons is quite mature for his age. I think that's a smart piece of business. We would have never done that. We would have never done that prior to Ineos, prior to Jason Wilcox and all that. We would have never bring in this kid. I'm telling you now, we would have never bring him in. It just wouldn't have happened. We would have went for somebody else totally or whatever. Kind of like we did with Onana. We went for Onana. Just would have never happened. We would have never went for the Sene Lemons. And meanwhile, he's probably a perfect buy. He's young. He's got a high potential. His build in terms of his body is big. He has qualities like, he can dive low, which was a problem with Onana, but he has a calm, cool, collected. He is mature for his age. He's kept a level head coming from the Belgium league to the Premier League. And then you look at players like Cunha and Mbeumo and the way they play and the way they handle themselves and sort of the aura that they bring and the confidence that they have in themselves. We weren't looking at these things when we were buying players before, which is why we are where we are today. Or we ended up in the position to kind of where we got today, because we were just buying. We were just buying for the sake of buying. We weren't doing the proper things. Ineos are doing, I kind of want to stop calling them Ineos, but just like Jason Wilcox and co. Are actually doing what we should have been doing for the last 12 years. And we've kind of gone back. It's not groundbreaking when Fergie used to interview the guys and asked them, 45 questions and nothing has to do about football. I think maybe at the time, maybe that was different, but I think now it's, if you're on top of your shit, I think it's one of the things you do. And we've gone back to that because if you listen to Jason talk, that's what they're doing. They're looking at players, attitudes, characters, what life they live outside of football. What do they do? What is their upbringing? What is their background? And stuff like that. We've overlooked that for so many years. So, yeah. Ray says, so if Bruno's playing shit, you don't change him because he's the captain. But not necessarily. I don't agree with that. Again, I think I think there's two different sort of aspects to this. I think for you to ask for, well, like, this is the situation. If he's playing like shit consistently, you can drop him, right? But that's not what people are asking for. People are asking him to be dropped for like 4 to 5 games straight. And it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So you can drop him as kind of like a warning or something to be like, you've been terrible for 6 games and you need a kind of a kick up your ass. And I'm going to drop you for this one match. But just know that he's going to come back in because at the end of the day, he's still the captain. So he's going to be out for a match. I don't think that's going to necessarily satisfy so many people because he's going to be out for a match and he's going to come back in. So I don't think the people that don't like him and want him dropped, I don't think they'll be satisfied with that. So that's not a win. And then my opinion on this is I think it is implausible. I think it is impractical to ask for a long-term benching or dropping of the captain. I just don't think it makes sense. I don't think they view it in that way. But I will continue to argue that when you are in the match, if he ain't playing good and he's having a shit game, at the very least, you got to be able to sub him out. You have to be able to sub him out. But I think the issue that we have on that is that Ruben does. I've heard him speak a little bit, and I've heard him talk about the individual. Which, when it comes to that aspect, is probably a problem because if it's one aspect to look at the team, but it's another aspect to look at the individual. And if you believe in individual brilliance, if you rely on individual brilliance a bit, then he's always going to be reluctant to take out what he deems his best players. So I think that's the issue that's happening, is because we get to this point where, Ali did this with individual brilliance and relying on individual brilliance, and relying for players to just, go take the ball and make something happen randomly. That seems to be his biggest issue in this. which makes him seem like a hypocrite. And it's because he looks at, he tends to look at the situation in what I believe, and he goes, well, he's not playing well, but I know what he's capable of, and I know that he can literally make something out of nothing. And I think that's why he's reluctant to make subs sometimes very fast. I think that's why he's reluctant to sub Bruno Fernandes out, because I think he looks at certain players and he says, well, they're not having the best of game, but all it takes is one moment. All it takes is one kick. All it takes is one pass. And so he holds out. Now, you don't have to agree with that. That's, you know, you could think that that's totally wrong way of moving. And I don't necessarily agree with that either. But I'm just saying, you have to try, like, you have to have your own opinion with it and your own belief. But you have to also try and understand where what the manager believes, because he's his own guy and he's his own person and he's in charge. So he might do things that you don't agree with, and you don't have to agree with them. But I think it's important to try and get an understanding of who he is as a manager and who he is as a guy, and what he believes and what he thinks in, to calm down a little bit, because I think people get carried away with crazy conspiracies when I just think that he views and he believes and he sees things like in a different way than maybe a lot of people do. You know, so like I think the way Ray views certain things in certain aspects, if he was a manager, he would handle them differently. But Ruben looks at them differently and he views them differently. You know, and he's looking at one aspect that Ray's not looking at, and Ray's looking at some aspect that he's not looking at. You know what I mean? So who's right or wrong? You know, whatever. You could argue that all day. You could have a debate about it. But I think it's just better to have sort of an understanding of that, like, you know, I don't think that that's the right way, but I can kind of see from his side of point, being the man he is, being the guy he is, with the philosophy he has, I can understand why he's doing these certain things, or try to make some sort of sense out of it. Lemons is a great addition, but Vitek could have done the same. Well, I don't know. I don't know about Vitek, but I'm sure they seem to rate him highly. I'm sure he'll have a good sort of future. I think at some point he'll probably come in and maybe not balance, fight it out with Lemons. Whether that's next year or the year after, but we'll see. I mean, I knew nothing about Lemons either. And I don't really know anything about Vitek because I don't pretend. I don't watch the youth. You know, like that. Again, like I'll see clips and shit, but I'm not the guy for clip rating, I call it. I'm not that guy. I'm just not. So yeah, I'm not that guy. Like I will take a look at, you know, what kind of goals they scored and stuff like that. But I'm just not that guy to, you know, if I can't watch them full 90 minutes and I'm not watching them full 90 minutes and I'm not watching them on a consistent, regular basis, I'm just not going to rate them. Yeah, I'm just not going to rate them. So, but I always hear many good things about Vitek, and they've said that he's highly rated, and they do rate him quite highly. So you know, we'll see, but I think Lemons being a little bit older and probably having some more experience than Vitek probably is the reason why Vitek is on loan and Lemons was brought in, because I think Vitek is probably still a bit too young. But he will get there. So listen, we're getting out of here. Very good show. Thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you to everybody that's smashed the like button, and thank you to everybody that got involved in the live chat. Shout out to all the live chatters. Shout out to the super chatters. Shout out to Sanchi and Richard and Ray and Grace as well. Shout out to the silent viewers that were here but didn't get involved. We appreciate you as well, because you know, you're viewing, you're helping us out either way, whether you're chatting or not. So appreciate you. Shout out Johnny Hill as well, and Box. Can't forget anybody. So yeah, big up yourselves. Thank you guys for stopping by. We will be live after the match, and this time we will be live, because unless this computer decides to do something again, we will be live. So we're not going to miss the Red Devil recap, because it's going to be the last one before we go on an international break. So I'm going to be looking forward to it. Hopefully we get the win. Sort of a prediction. I don't know. I feel like it could be a draw.
I feel like it could end up a draw. But if I'm going to go for a United win, I do think we'll probably concede. So it's got to be like a 2-1, maybe a 3-1, maybe a 3-2, something like that. We do need to score. We need to continue the streak to score first, which I hope we can keep that up. But I don't think we're going to necessarily find an answer for getting a clean sheet. I mean, it would be great if we do, but I just don't expect it because that's on the trend that we are. And at some point, somewhere, we're going to have to start it and figure it out. But I just don't think tomorrow's match is the match that we solve it because we're away from home. It's a difficult match, Tottenham. We're performing about the same. So I think maybe it's going to take maybe a smaller game and an easier game to kind of start that trend, start that feeling and get it going. So maybe after the international break. But yeah, Richard says 2-1 United and also says, thanks, Eric. Take care. Thanks, Ray. Stay safe, chat. Yeah, you too. And we will be live after the match. So make sure everybody is there. Get there. Because we're going to want to hear from you. We're going to want as many people as possible to do the Red Devil recap. And they're always very good shows anyway. Very passionate, very emotional. Very good points made. So I always thoroughly, the most thing I enjoy is the Red Devil recap because I just love the discussion that comes out of it and it's passionate. Sometimes it's frustrating because we do a lot of arguing. But that's part of it and I like it. So other than that, everybody have a good night. Be good. Stay safe, and we will catch you tomorrow after